gone insane. An upside-down civilization cannot be real. A world of madness and terror.
It's the Dana Gould Hour.
Today's show is brought to you by Casper. Get $50 towards any mattress purchase by visiting casper.com/Dana and using the promo code Dana at checkout. Terms and conditions apply.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
Tis. It's Halloween times, and we have a veritable pillowcase full of treats in store for your listening pleasure. We are joined by director Joe Dante. He of Gremlins, The Howling, Piranha, Matinee, Small Soldiers, Gremlins 2, The Burbs, Twilight Zone the movie, the list goes on and on and on. Additionally, Josh Olson, the Academy Award-nominated screenwriter for A History of Violence, starring Viggo Mortensen, one of 7 close friends of mine with the name Viggo. Josh is also a friend of Harlan Ellison and is the current curator of the excellent Trailers from Hell podcast. Also joining us, because it's Halloween and it's a big 3-guester, it's Mike Mendez, who directed the great Big Ass Spider. And if you haven't seen it, go on iTunes and get it. He also directed Don't Kill It, Tales of Halloween, etc., etc. Great guys all, good friends all, and super Halloween nerds all. Enjoy. Me? Oh Lord, so much baloney. Let's get through it quickly. October 29th is a sweet-ass day if you live in Los Angeles. It's Plan 9 from Outer Space live at Largo on La Cienega. Joining me will be Janet Varney, Paul F. Tompkins, Lorraine Newman, Brian Posehn, Jonah Ray, Matt Bronger, Ron Lynch, Deborah Baker Jr., Nate Mooney, G. Charles Wright, with live music by Eben Schletter and stage design by Pam Severns.
Can you prove that it didn't happen?
You can't if you're not there. Go to largo-la.com for tickets. November 1st, Season 2 of Stan Against Evil premieres on IFC. You had to have been living under a rock if you are even a casual fan of this podcast and you have not heard me blather on and on about that one. Season 1 is on Hulu now if you'd like to catch up. I'm very proud of this season. It's really great, and I can't wait for you guys to see it. November 2nd through the 4th, I will be at Zany's in Chicago. And I promise, it will be zany. Much zanier than the old club in Chicago, Morose's. On November 16th, 17th, and 18th, it's back to my hometown of Boston, Massachusetts, to perform at Laughs Boston, where I will be joined by former podcast guests, personal friends, and estimable comedians in their own right, Valerie Tossi and Ken Reed. Don't live in Chicago or Boston? You can buy my album, Mr. Funnyman, on Kill Rock Stars Records, available on iTunes and Amazon. But until then, there's the doorbell. It's them neighborhood kids. So let's get going.
Tune in, it's a gas. It's the Dana Gould Hour.
Trick or treat, trick or treat, trick or treat on Halloween. Happy Halloween!
Years ago, a friend of mine took me to see Roxy Music at the Greek Theater. they didn't sing one song that I wasn't familiar with. And you realize like it's just hit after hit after hit after hit. And you are the cinematic equivalent of that to me. Just clearly know who you are, know your movies, but then you look at your filmography and it's like, oh, he did that, he made that, he made that, he made that. And I really appreciate your taking the time to sit with me today. I'm joined by director, writer, hand model, jack of all trades. Joe Dante is here,
who has never been compared to Roxy Music.
There's a first time for everything. Now, the first thing that we discussed when I first met you is that you're from Morristown, New Jersey, where I have spent a lot of time.
I can't imagine what you were doing.
I was getting engaged.
I haven't been back to Morristown in quite a while. I had relatives there. My grandma lived there, and my cousins. And the nice thing that my memories of, which are all tree lined and Peyton Place, are that there were two movie theaters. There was the community theater, which was this staid, columned building that looked like a Southern mansion, and that's where all the classy pictures played. And then there was the Park Theater, which is on the park, and they played all the horror pictures. And so the problem was that for me to get there from Livingston, New Jersey, where I lived, was quite an effort. So it involved a lot of coordination. Much like when I lived in Philadelphia, in order to go see these pictures that didn't play anywhere else, I would have to take the subway down out to the furthest reaches of the darkest neighborhoods in town and go into the seediest grindhouses in order to be able to see pictures that you just couldn't see anywhere else. Right.
And it's hard to envision for people today. There was a time when you couldn't just pull up a movie you wanted to see and watch it on your phone.
No, you either had to see it theatrically or you had to wait for it to be on TV. And if you didn't see it at 1 o'clock in the morning when it was programmed,
you were SOL.
You were out of luck until maybe 2 years from then.
Right. Yeah. I remember going to the grocery store on Tuesday because that was the day next week's TV guide came out. And you would go through the movies and figure out what was on. And oh God, King Kong versus Godzilla's on Sunday 4. Great, okay, I can see that then. And then it all becomes instantaneous, which obviously it's better and more people that have.
Well, dude, there are more movies.
Becomes less special.
There are more movies to see now than there ever were, and there are movies from 70 years ago that were lost forever, and now are back, and we can see them, and they look pretty good. And I think that's all great, except I don't think people probably really appreciate. I think you have to be our age to really appreciate the idea of how special it was to see movies and to seek them out and to try to find them and to feel the accomplishment.
Yeah, definitely. And it's, the equivalent is the microcosmic version of that is I have all of the Twilight Zone on DVD, but when I see it on television, I'm like, ooh.
That's true. There's something about the fun of changing the channel and seeing something.
Yeah, and
even if it's in the middle,
people are watching it at the same time.
Right. Well, it was a communal experience, which is the one thing we really have lost with movies, because except
technology,
for going to the theater, which people generally don't do unless they're below a certain age. You lose the impact of being able to share an experience. And it's particularly difficult with comedies, because comedies on your computer, you may raise a little chuckle. But when you see a movie that's in an appreciative audience, I mean, it's a different experience.
It's a vastly different experience. And you talk about that. That's one of these things I find really fascinating. There's a law of unintended consequences. Like, one of the motivations behind the internet was it will allow us to work faster and we'll have more free time and it'll unite us as a community. And all it means is that we work more because we can get more done and we're much more divided as a community. So outside of having the completely opposite effect of its original intention, it was spot on. And you were talking about when you were young director just starting out, you were involved in Rock and Roll High School, which is a seminal, cult film. And you're working with young actors and you're working with the Ramones. And you got into making movies the same reason the Ramones got into playing music. Like this was this thing that you wanted to do as a kid, and it wasn't. Tell me where I'm wrong. It's a very rebellious way to make a living. You're an artist. You know, you're not going to medical school or law school. You're following your dream. You're an artist, and you're being creative. And yet, the more successful you become in that, the more you become the man, and you get all of this responsibility.
Well, that's true. I mean, you know, responsibility with more money comes more responsibility. And when my compatriots and I started out working for very little money on movies that we weren't given a lot of money to make, had to be made very quickly and very cheaply. We learned a lot of lessons that later enabled us to make big movies quickly.
Right.
But as the layers of success grow, the layers of interference also grow.
Mm-hmm.
Very
true.
Oddly enough, the movies that we made for Roger Corman were very specifically targeted toward a certain audience. And within that framework, as long as you hit those buttons that needed to be hit, you had a tremendous amount of freedom, which is something that I think a lot of us didn't realize until later when we started working with bigger budgets and more interference from executives and things. And we realized, well, boy, you know, I could have had this thing done yesterday if they just let me do it the way I wanted to do it. But now I got to take into account this person and that person and this person's wife and you know, and it's and all of a sudden
I run a television show. I know exactly. Although I managed to get to that level in the business when you don't get a lot of money either.
I think we've all reached back to that.
But somebody had a great line the other day. Welcome to the new economy. Your car is now a taxi cab and your house is a hotel.
It's very true.
It is true. But yeah, I find that as, you know, the great thing about, you know, being a writer with a television show is that you're the final arbiter of your words and you don't have to see them get mangled to your view. Mm. In the same way that Billy Wilder said he became a director just to protect his scripts. He didn't particularly have a yen for directing. But then you get this whole other world. My friend Eddie Gorodetsky, I don't know if you know Eddie Gorodetsky, but he's a gadfly, a very accomplished writer in town. And he says, yeah, once you run a television show or you're directing a movie, it's like, yes, you're an artist and you're creative. You're also going to run a string of convenience stores.
Well, you got to do something to make money.
But no, it's the responsibility of running convenience stores in addition to writing. It's like, yes, I'm writing scripts. Today I have to leave here and go review the metadata, which is the way it's going to be described in either 280 characters or less in different online viewing platforms.
Right.
And people just ship that to me. And it's just, and I can imagine when you're on a big movie, when you're on a big studio movie, when you're way up there and you're doing Gremlins and these big summer tentpole movies, Gremlins 2, those were for Warner Brothers, correct?
Yeah, I was a little. I've been lucky in my career that I haven't had incredible layers of interference. I mean, when I was working,
but there's incredible layers of responsibility in those.
Well, no, there's a lot of. Well, listen, my first movie cost $60,000 for Roger Corman, and I thought it was. I felt like I had the weight of the world on my shoulders. I mean, $60,000 is a lot of money.
$60,000 of Roger Corman's money is like everything.
Well, so I always was conscious of the responsibility.
Peanut butter and jelly.
And so, you know, Roger instilled in us a certain frugality. Which comes in helpful. I mean, you don't want to waste time. You don't want to waste money. You don't want to shoot things you don't need. I mean, if you come to directing from editing, you're already conversant with what you don't need to shoot.
Right. You know what you're not going to shoot.
And whereas a lot of people who come from writing or acting or whatever will sometimes they'll overcover everything because they're worried. What if this doesn't work? What if that doesn't work?
That's really true. The directors that I work with that come from acting, there's so much coverage. It's just burning film.
Well, it just comes from not knowing exactly how you're going to put it together. But if you've already got it in your head and you already have a grammar that you've learned about how you can go from here to here, and you don't need that. You don't have to see the guy open the door. All you do is cut to the next scene and he's inside. So we don't have to shoot that. You know, and when you get in a crunch, as you always do, no matter what the budget is, you realize that there are certain things you can do without. You know, I'm going to do that. Well, let's spend a little more time on this, which is important, and let's not spend any time time on this, which is not important,
Right.
and it's probably going to get cut out. I mean, the current thinking with TV series is give the director a script that's 10 to 15 pages longer than it needs to be, and then we'll cut it down. Well, that's a recipe for not getting a good version of anything.
Right.
Because now you're spending time shooting things that aren't going to be in the show, and the things that are in the show are things that you shot without the effort that you would have put into them. Right, because you have too much to do. So it's maddening to watch stuff that you worked hard on get cut out.
It's a beautiful early October day here high atop the Mulholland Drive view shelf, I believe it is described as, here at Falcon's Lair Recording Studios. It's October. It's warm, but no longer unseasonably warm. It's now what we call seasonably warm. And I'm here with a very good friend of mine and an incredibly talented writer and director who made the mistake of directing me in a movie and directed last year's Don't Kill It, and a movie, if you have not seen it, you have to see, a film called Big Ass Spider, among many others, my friend Mike Mendez.
All right, this is the sound of my voice. Thank you for the intro. That's very kind of you.
Now, what have I missed? I hit the big hits.
There's some terrible ones I like to forget.
Yes.
But I think we all have those.
What's the stuff for Vivid? Let's just get to it.
Well, close. I did one for Full Moon, my very first job, called Bimbo Movie Bash, which was more an editing job, but sadly I was credited as director and producer, or co-director and producer. And we have those few that we wish were off our IMDb's, and that was certainly the first of them.
Now, that's not the Bimbo Movie Bash with Frank Langella. This is a different one.
This is a different one. This is the classy one.
This is the Meryl Streep.
But we have Bill Maher. We have Adrienne Barbeau. But again, the thing was, it was...
Really? What year was this?
It was 1996.
No.
But the thing was...
Bill must
I never
have been doing
worked
it for fun.
He
was a big TV star by then.
Well, the thing was that I didn't actually work with any of them. It was... So Full Moon had this little CD-ROM game called Bimbo Movie Bash, and what you could do on your Commodore 64 or whatever the current computer was of that time was you could take footage of their not so good films, and you can kind of like make your own thing. And so Charlie Band, insightfully thought like, well, I got all this filmed, we should like recut stuff and make its own movie. And so I was very inspired by Woody Allen's What's Up Tiger Lily,
right?
And I thought that would
which in retrospect isn't creepy at all.
but it's good, and it was a clever idea.
It would be as if the first version of it was directed by a young director named John Wayne Gacy. Okay. And then we found out later
the gangbang scene would definitely be back in. So he sort of thought like, back to What's Up Tiger Lily, I thought that was a brilliant way to kind of like go into an independent film of like, you have this thing, just kind of record all the dialogue and make it a comedy. And they had the Subspecies films and the Puppet Master films and the Beach Babes from Beyond Infinity and Dr. Alien and all these kind of like cheesy sci-fi things. So we thought it would be fun to do kind of a parody of Independence Day, because that was like the big movie at the time, sort of a Bimbopendence Day.
Nice.
And so was born the Bimbo Movie Bash. So we started kind of cutting it, and I thought it'd be great to get some comedians to re-record it. And then we did like our first like maybe half hour of it, and Charlie came in and was like, yeah, everything's dubbed. Why is that? I'm like, well, we told you we were re-recording the dialogue. He's like, oh, no. I mean, I think it would be better if we just keep the original dialogue.
Oh God!
And then I'm like
one of those novelty records.
Yeah,
Mr. Jaws.
And that's the thing. Then it's just clips of bad movies.
Yeah, it's a clip show. Yeah.
And so that's what it was, a clip show. So in there was Cannibal Women in the Avocado Jungle of Death, starring Bill Maher and Adrienne Barbeau and whatnot. And
Avocado Jungle of Death.
Cannibal Women in the Avocado Jungle of Death. Yes, yes, a gem. I'm sure Bill is very proud of that.
Avocado with. It's just such a random audition. And that was clearly from one of the backers. Hey, look, I'm an avocado here. I have an avocado.
Avocados are big.
People are going to walk out of this one to buy avocados. I don't care what happens.
Yeah, I walk out of movies and I say what that movie needs is more avocado. Yeah. So we're not going to make that mistake this time.
There's an apocalypse now to make as much money as The Godfather? No avocado.
Exactly. So that abortion of a film was born. And,
interesting choice of words.
Yes. The great thing about abortion is it brings out the kid in you.
Hey! Laughing looks at the news. And was Big Ass Spider your first big movie? We watched it again the other night. I showed my daughter it. It was
thank you.
My oldest daughter. My oldest daughter is that movie was made for my oldest daughter. She's really funny. Her Halloween costume this year is she's 15 and she got a bathrobe with like ocean wave patterns on it.
Okay, cool.
And she's sewing stuffed sharks onto it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Going as Sharknado.
Oh, I love it. That's great.
She's a funny kid and it was perfect for her. But that's like a big, it's basically them.
Totally. That was certainly a huge inspiration. No, my career is a weird one where, I feel like this very obscure filmmaker that's just been around for a long time because
I'm like that. I'm honestly like that with comedy. I'm not a hugely famous stand-up comedian.
I disagree,
been around since the Dumont Network.
I actually wanted to be a stand-up comic when I was young, and I was very aware of your work, sir. So
how young?
I think it was,
okay. You don't have to say anything.
So when I was 19, I did 2 open mic nights at the Improv and realized that that I preferred being behind the camera. That was, let me make people laugh when I'm not, the show's not me, which is part of the reason I admire stand-up comedy so much. It's like, you guys are the show. I don't know how you do it. There's no exploding heads or squibs or things that I could,
It finally happened where I was at the Tempe Improv and somebody came up and said that one, I get either you are my favorite comic growing up or you're my dad's favorite comic.
Ooh.
I know. You know what? I'm glad I'm alive. I'm glad I'm still alive.
No, totally. Absolutely. But you've been doing it a long time. And I feel kind of similarly, like I made my first feature when I was 22 and it was one of those things that just can't happen at this point. We shot a movie in the hills of Glendale, with credit cards and just money that, our family got together and, And
you grew up out here.
In Pasadena and Eagle Rock, exactly. So we had this VHS tape, which was, how we finished the product or whatever and sent it off to Sundance. And miraculously, we got in. And I just don't think that happens now.
No, I have no idea how any of it happens.
Well, now I think film festivals are so much about who's in it, what's the distribution plan, what is this going to get attention,
Yeah.
And so this was an honest to goodness.
You can't get anything done if you're not in tight with Harvey Weinstein. What's
yeah, so exactly. Jesus Christ, who you can reference now. Everyone's going down. This is crazy.
You can't even beat off in front of Meryl Streep anymore.
What does the world come to? I don't know. I will say the people going down, not the nicest people.
Yeah,
I'm not shedding a tear for any of the ones that are going down in flames right now.
This is a great example of it's who you are. The best example is Barney Frank versus Anthony Weiner. Barney Frank was caught with a male prostitute, which is illegal.
Right.
Anthony Weiner sent a dick pic to somebody, which is not illegal.
Right.
Sending a dick pic to somebody who's underage is, but that happened later.
Right.
When he was a congressman, he just got caught sending a dick pic to somebody. And what happened was Anthony Weiner got bounced out of Congress and Barney Frank was fine. You know why? Because Barney Frank was a great guy.
Right.
Barney Frank had a lot of friends and Anthony Weiner had no friends.
I'd like to think it makes a difference. It
made all the difference to Barney Frank.
I don't think Harvey Weinstein was a well-loved person. I don't know. I've never had too much meaningful interaction with him.
Here's one. Me neither. But you've never heard. I heard the nicest story about Harvey Weinstein.
Right. Totally.
Where you do hear stuff about I used to make fun of Joel Schumacher a lot.
Why? I don't understand.
It's because of the.
Is it Batman and Robin?
It was Batman and Robin. I was on the set.
He's a character, though.
He is a character. One day, I was on the set of Batman and Robin and visiting. I believe I was visiting Greg Nicotero, who built the ice.
Oh, fantastic!
Stalactites. And I was on the Warner Brothers lot, and doing something else. And I think I was shooting the movie Father's Day. Remain seated.
Okay.
I might have been. Long story longer. Joel Schumacher is Joel's character, and he's very theatrical.
Yeah.
And he was directing George Clooney, who's like, I get it. I get it. Yeah.
Right.
And I used to exaggerate it and do this funny impression. And my manager goes, he's a great guy. Joel Schumacher's a great guy. Gave me my start in the business. I go, yeah, I know, but it's like by the time I got around to telling him the story, Joel Schumacher was like flying around the set on the Jetsons car. Hello. And he goes, no, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
My manager's a really funny guy and smart, and like I value his opinion more than anyone's.
But we have to give Joel Schumacher a little bit of shit for
Sure.
the nipples on the suit for some of the worst one-liners of
everybody chill.
And all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. But I'll tell you this. So that year I go to my manager's house for Christmas Eve, and he sits me next to Joel Schumacher. At that point, it was me, my wife, and my oldest daughter, who was then 2 or 3 or 4. Within 10 minutes, we wanted to build an addition on our house for Joel to live in.
Aww.
And he is the nicest, sweetest, most thoughtful, most caring, most intelligent, greatest stories in the world.
Right, yes.
Yeah. And I walked out of there, I was like, he can do no wrong.
Right.
I don't care. I missed the point of Batman and Robin. It's a great movie.
It's really brilliant. It was secretly great. I understand that.
Yeah, and it's just like,
I've heard
that
about
matters
them.
a lot more to me. Like, I would much rather sit next to Joel Schumacher than Otto Preminger, who I heard was a cock.
Right, sure. Now, I have a friend who just did a giant book on the Lost Boys and spoke to 9 hours of Joel Schumacher. Now he's obsessed doing an impression of him. I cannot do it as well as him.
My manager was a PA on the Lost Boys, I think.
Oh, cool. Yeah, totally. And I heard nothing but what a sweet sweet human being. So, and there's some really good movies in there at a time, Flatliners. And,
he was and he was the art director on Sleeper. Like, this guy's been around forever.
Wow, that's amazing.
I'd love to get him on the show.
Yes, totally. Yes, that'd be good. Sorry, so we were talking about pieces of shit that harass.
No, we were building out like how you ended up at Big Ass Spider.
Oh, how did I get there? So yes.
By the way, Joel Schumacher has never harassed a woman in his career.
No, I don't think so. I think you're correct. I think he's fine on that.
It is, dare I say it, a lovely fall day here, high atop the Mulholland Drive, San Fernando Valley view shelf, and a little hovel I like to call Falcon's Lair Recording Studios. My guest today is an Oscar nominee, which means he didn't win for, was it Best Original Screenplay or Screenplay? Best Adapted Screenplay for a little film that I love and has one of the best coffee pot related assault scenes in the history of cinema, The History of Violence, with Viggo Mortensen, probably known to you all as Exene Cervenka's ex-husband. And you're also the host of the soon-to-be forthcoming Trailers from Hell podcast, which I've already done. Please welcome Josh Olson.
This is the sound of my voice.
Now, you're just telling me an interesting thing. You went to film school.
Yes.
But you dropped out because you realized
I had made more movies. I mean, I'm almost as old as you, Dana. I'm
like a magic talking tree. I've lived through the ages.
How'd you like it if somebody picked an apple off you?
Damn it. The first thing I ever saved money for was Bolex Super 8 movie camera.
Nice.
And I remember, yes, and it was $80. Took me forever.
Right. And that was back when $80 was $80.
Yes, right. Exactly. And would buy a movie camera. And I used to make movies all the time. And I realized after 2 years of film school, and I got some really good stuff out of it, some great teachers, especially in kind of the theory area. But I made more movies before I went to film school than while I was at film school. And I was always a terrible student anyway. And the opportunity came up to come to Hollywood and get.
And so you weren't at like UCLA, USC film school?
No, I was at Temple University in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
Hall & Oates, Bill Cosby, me.
Holy Trinity. Yeah. There's 4 of them. Well, yeah. Cosby's probably out of the Holy Trinity.
Yeah,
right now.
Just Daryl, John, and me now.
Yeah.
But
he's another Trinity with Woody Allen and Bill Cosby.
Roman Polanski.
Yeah, Roman Polanski. I was going to say Charlie Chaplin, but good enough.
Never proven.
Never proven. Yeah.
Yes.
Roman proven.
But, so I came out here on just a whim. It was a friend had a friend who might be hiring. That was all I needed. Got all the way out here with everything I had, and he wasn't hiring. But it got me on my first studio. I got on the lot at the old Laird Studios, now the Culver Studios, and ended up getting a job as a PA on my first movie, the live-action Dolph Lundgren Masters of the Universe.
1984?
86.
Okay, close. I do remember it well. Laird Studios?
It was called Laird.
Named after Jack Laird?
Probably, yeah. It was independent because, it had been part of Warner's.
Right.
And then, and they had done
Is this where Scott and Larry's office is?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. No, I used to when they were there, and I loved going there. Maybe so nostalgic, but now they're gone.
Yeah, they got kicked out of that office.
Well, yeah, because they're such layabouts.
Yeah, I know. They do nothing. They're so lazy.
Yeah, those guys. But yeah, it was there, and that was my introduction to Hollywood.
I think the burning question on everybody's lips. Dolph Lundgren, good guy.
Lovely guy. I think the statute of limitations is over on this stuff. So, it was such an education because Rocky IV was the last movie I saw in Philadelphia before I moved out here, where, he played Ivan Drago.
Where basically Rocky fights communism.
Exactly. And the giant, superhuman, supernaturally large Russian who turned out to be exactly to the centimeter my height.
Oh, that's funny.
Now I'm 6'5", so he's not.
Yeah, you're a tall drink of water, Joshua. And there's also he's also in Mike Mendez's film "Don't Kill It."
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, there's many.
And he's very good in it. He's really good in it.
He's wonderful.
Yeah.
He's done so. There's a great, what the hell's it called? There's a great John Sayles one he did called Men of War. It's straight to video in the 90s. It's Dolph and a bunch of mercenaries go to this island supposedly to take it over. And then it's John Sayles. So it's political as fuck.
Yeah. But John Sayles was already making
he was making real movies then.
He was making City of Hope by then.
Yeah. This is not his Howling period.
Yeah. This is Passion Fish and City of Hope.
Yeah. And then Men of War.
City of Hope, by the way, really underrated movie.
One of my favorites.
Yeah. Really underrated movie.
I have great John Sayles stories.
Passion Fish, starring my old acting teacher.
Really?
Mary McDonald. Yeah.
Wow. And wasn't she the Secretary of Education who got bumped to
the president?
Yes. Yes, of course. We're all nerds here. Mm-hmm. It's him and some wrestlers, and they fall in love with the people on this island and then turn around and fight the evil oil company.
That's funny.
And Dolph's actually really good at it. He's good at everything.
Yeah, he's good. And Mike
except Masters of the Universe. He was still figuring it out.
Well, that was a lot of people don't know this about Masters of the Universe, based on the cartoon.
Correct. Based on the toy.
Right. But it was a script by Bud Schulberg, and then Patty Chayefsky took a swing at it.
That is correct. Yes, little known fact.
But I do remember that movie. I do remember that movie coming out.
You didn't go see it, though. You were.
No, I was a hip.
You were an adult and you didn't have kids
22
yet.
that summer. No, I was 20,
why would you?
22, living in Boston, young comedian, saw Masters of the Universe and did not go see it.
Yeah, we went opening Friday night because, of course, a bunch of us who worked on it at the Egyptian in Hollywood, and there were 4 of us in the theater.
Oh, no. My friend went to see the Whoopi Goldberg film, The Telephone.
Oh, yeah.
With his girlfriend.
I have that on DVD.
They were the only 2 people in the theater, and they literally were like doing cartwheels up and down the.
Sure.
Yeah. But what I like about that story, and it's what I always tell everybody who has any, that is starting out or what have you, things lead to things. And you came, if you sit in Philadelphia and wait until you have the perfect script, the script is perfect and 6 people want to make it, then I'll go to Hollywood. No, you just go out there and get going. And you just, yes, your first year is going to be lonely, sad, and depressing.
And broke.
Oh,
boy.
Yeah. But you do it. And then the second year is not so bad.
That's pretty much true. Second year, well, actually, no. I also got to work with Billy Barty, of course, on Masters. So first year was pretty good. He's in Masters of the Universe.
What did he play in Masters of the Universe? Let me guess, not the Master of the Universe.
Yeah, he played Gwildor. He was a little alien wizard. And I like to say it was my first job in Hollywood because he couldn't get up when he was in his makeup and outfit. He couldn't get up the stairs to the giant throne room set. So I had to carry him.
Really?
Yeah. First job in Hollywood, carrying
Billy Barty.
Yes.
And he was hot off Under the Rainbow then, so there was no talking to him.
Exactly. Yeah. He was a lovely man.
He was a lovely guy?
Yeah, very.
That's all, yeah. And then Felix Silva was the other famous little person of that era.
Oh, see, you and Joe Dante are far beyond me with this.
Felix Silva was Tweaky in Buck Rogers in the 25th Century with Gil Gerard.
Ah, okay.
And he was also the child gorilla in the original Planet of the Apes who says, "Look, it's a man."
Wow. So I guess you like Planet of the Apes, huh?
The fact that I can pull that knowledge out is the reason my life is nothing but ladies.
Yes.
So, your big success story in Hollywood was History of Violence, which is not a genre film, but you seem to be like you're a big. Are you a film geek or a genre geek or?
Yeah, no, I'm a hardcore genre freak. I mean, I'm a movie freak. My dad used to take me to. Parents got divorced very young. My dad would take me every other weekend. We'd see every movie there was in the 70s, regardless of its appropriateness.
You know, had the same childhood, but 20 years earlier. Well, his mother was killed, but James Ellroy.
Oh yeah,
James. His mom was killed, and his dad and him. They just went to the movies.
Yeah,
but this was in the 40s and 50s, so he's seen every film noir ever made.
Right, exactly.
In the theater upon release, because his dad took him because he didn't know how to do anything else. Nowadays, Dad's taking to Color Me Mine, or as I call it, Custody Day Mine.
Oh, well, there's more kids movies now, which I think is a terrible thing because. You know,
I see them all.
I was what, 8 or 9 when my old man was taking me to McCabe. He was obsessed with Robert Altman. I saw McCabe and Mrs. Miller maybe 5 times. Can you imagine a child having to watch those naked hookers getting in and out of the bathtubs?
Now, where did you, and you grew up in
Philadelphia.
How was your dad? What did your dad do for a living?
He's in real estate, but he's
but he was a cineast.
Yeah, it was also the 70s. Everyone was, these were conversations that the culture was having.
Well,
I grew up thinking that that's what, everyone talking about Robert Altman films.
Well, somebody just said yesterday, and I don't know who it was. It wasn't that the films were better in the 70s.
Paul Schrader.
The audiences were.
Yes, it's a Paul Schrader quote that's making the rounds.
Great, and true. Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Which, oh my God, hang on as long, because the same time I saw that, somebody, I thought, yeah, he's probably right, because somebody put this on Twitter. I'll let you read it because this is a tweet somebody put out about Harry Dean Stanton, proving that audiences were better in the 70s.
This is a quote about Harry Dean Stanton. Harry Dean Stanton, 1926 to 2017. He lived 91 years and got to play a role in an Avengers movie. So much win.
Yeah. Shall we just kill ourselves?
I don't know. I look at when I read that, I can hear I'm Jack Webb making fun of hippies.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, I'm with you.
Think you're pretty far out, aren't you, son? People always talk about by the time Hitchcock shot the movie, it was done. It was so meticulously planned, and he knew exactly what he wanted.
But very few of us can do that.
No, I know. He's like, it's like citing the Beatles.
And also sometimes he acted like it was a chore to illustrate his boards.
Right.
Whereas I don't think that was true. I think he enjoyed doing it.
Yeah.
I don't see what had done it. But sometimes it can get to be laborious to just simply shoot everything exactly the way you planned it. That doesn't leave the space for the most important thing, which is the input of the people around you.
Here's a weird analogy to that. Keith Richards said that's why the Rolling Stones were always more successful than the Who, because Pete Townsend was like Hitchcock, and his demos were so intricately structured and planned. And he would give it to John, this is your part, Keith, this is your part, Roger, this is your. Whereas the Stones would literally, well, I don't know, what do you want to do? And it would come, and that allows people to explode and
to be free and to express themselves.
Yeah.
And
now, granted, they came from Keith Richards, so I'm not slagging off Pete Townsend. And
no, they're both
Keith
great.
Richards might have.
They're both great.
Lord knows, Keith Richards might have thought he was being interviewed by 8 snakes. Who knows what the world looks like through his point of view? Well, you're a very attractive skeleton man. Let me tell you a story. How do you have accordions for feet? You never know how he sees the world. But there's the plus and the minus. But when you get into movies, let's go chronologically. Was Piranha your first?
Oh, my first picture was Hollywood Boulevard, which I did with Alan Arkish, and it was a
68. Was it?
No, it was I wish. No, it was 75, and the bet was that we could make a picture cheaper than anything Roger Corman had made at his company, New World Pictures. And John Davison, who was his publicity person at the time, wanted to be a producer, and he had produced a couple things. And he thought that we could all three make a picture and we talk him into and get us out of the editing room, because Alan and I were doing trailers all the time, and we wanted to do pictures. And so we said, well, I'll get Roger to agree to make this picture if it's the cheapest picture that he's ever made here. And so we had $60,000. And we thought, well, how am we going to make a picture for $60,000 that anybody's going to sit through? And we realized we already had in our heads all of the images from these trailers that we've been doing for the past several years. The problem was they were all different genres. So the only way to use those in the movie would be to shoot the picture around them and to make it about a movie company making movies. So that we could use all the action footage, the expensive action footage, the comparatively expensive action footage from these movies and put them in our picture free, as long as we dressed our actors up like the people on the screen. So we ended up making a picture called Hollywood Boulevard, which was a 3-girl formula movie. Roger was doing teachers and nurses, and they would take their clothes off and get into trouble and in left-wing causes and things like that. And
that's not what I thought when you think goes to get into trouble. I didn't mean, you must mean socio-political trouble.
It was almost always with maybe some nudity, maybe a couple of assaults along the way. I mean, these were different times, but we did actresses. So these were 3 actresses who were trying to make it in the business, and we made up a ridiculous plot about murders on a movie set, and we got all our friends to be in it. And it's a silly movie, but it is a very accurate portrait of the way movie making, B-movie making was in Hollywood in the 70s.
Oh, that's that is I have to familiarize myself with Hollywood Boulevard as well.
Well, no, you really don't. But
I would.
But if you,
that is among my favorite genre of motion picture.
But the 70s was an amazing time because the rating system had just come in, and all of a sudden there was license. You could show nudity, you could show violence. All you had to do was put a number on it, an R or an X or whatever.
Right.
And so, and plus porn was exploding at that time. I mean, they finally decided that you could actually show. As they do on The Deuce, they try to bring back this era where things were expanding into like the neighborhood theaters were now running The Devil and Miss Jones. I mean, this is like unheard of.
Have you seen is that what happened?
Yeah, I've seen 2 episodes of it. Yeah. It's very accurate technically. I mean, it really I was there. I mean, how they make 42nd Street look like 42nd Street, which I assume is all done with CGI. But I mean, even down to the marquees and the misspellings on the marquees are accurate. I mean, it's really serious.
And it is interesting. I'm old enough to remember New York when it was a violently dangerous place.
Well, it was, but it was somehow more exciting.
Much more exciting and much more charming and much more real. And it was, especially in the early 70s. You have the glitz and the glamour of that you view in New York from the 50s to the 60s. The Mad Men era of New York, the whole mid-century era of New York is this beautiful. And then it was that when the burdens of society, when the burdens of the economy meant that the upkeep went away and poverty and all of that stuff, all the chickens came home to roost and everything started to rot. And it's as is the nature of any system. It started to reach a point of putrescence. And in the late 70s, early 80s in New York, it was dicey, but also that's when you had the best music was going on in New York, the best comedy. The art grew out of that. But first thing I remember getting out of Penn Station off a bus from Western Massachusetts, and quite literally the first thing I saw when I got off the bus was a guy get his head kicked into a wall. Literally the first, and I remember the noise. I went, oh. That was, I remember.
But you didn't get back on the.
No, it was like, I'm not going that way. No, yeah, it was interesting. Did Corman, did he have a paternal sense with, did he like have, was it like, how are you, Joe? How are you, Joe? Or was it anybody that came in with
No. It was, his paternal side was the side that you rebelled against. That's how it really worked. I mean, he ran the company. He was unfailingly polite and pleasant.
Yeah. Which goes a long way.
Unless you were going over budget or doing some other thing that was going to cost him money, and then he would get a little he canceled my first movie after the first night, or my second movie after the first night because what was the reason? I can't remember. On Pirahan, he decided after the first night's shooting that he was going to cancel the movie. But, it was because the second unit budget was too big. That was it. He got the budget and it was too big. And he said, oh, no, we're going to. And he would have these sort of large reactions that he would then immediately back down from.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, he would make an impulsive thing, and he'd go, well, no, wait, I guess that's not what we're going to do. And it all worked out fine. I have a great relationship with Roger. I was one of the few people, along with John Davison, who was a fan of Roger's movies before we went to work for him.
Yeah.
So we already knew all the movies that
He
he'd done.
was a very good director.
And he was a very good director. And
he directed Follow the House of Usher, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Yeah.
It's a great movie.
And so we had a good relationship.
And beautiful.
And he understood how to make a movie. That's two things that were lucky in my career. One was the first person I worked for knew what he was doing. Mm-hmm. And the second person was Steven Spielberg, and he knew what he was doing.
Right.
So I had two people who I could actually go to and ask a question, and they would understand what I was talking about. As opposed to when I discovered, when I got out of that little cocoon,
right,
that there were not a lot of people who knew what they were talking about.
Right.
That if you had a problem, it was your problem, solve it. You know?
yeah, that's very true. But Spielberg is close to your age, so you have this relationship with Roger Corman, who's a very paternal guy, and I met him with you actually at the New Beverly, and he's just a delightful gentleman. And, but Spielberg is basically your generation and maybe a couple years older. But did you find that he had I say this in a positive way, a freakishly, a base of knowledge about filmmaking?
Not freakish, but he loved movies. I mean, the thing that we had in common.
I didn't mean freakish like he's a freak. Like it's wow. Like Elvis Costello. Elvis Costello was like talking to a musical encyclopedia.
No,
like,
I'm freakish that way. I don't think he's freakish that way. But we did like a lot of the same stuff. And I happened to be right there when he was creating his company. Amblin. The first company. And I did the first picture for that company. And plus he was smarting a little bit because on Poltergeist there had been all these stories that he had directed it and Tobe Hooper didn't direct it, and which there's some truth to the things that people say about what happened on the set, but it is Tobe's movie and he did direct it. And Stephen was very sensitive about that, and he didn't want to be considered. He said, nobody will come work for me if they think that I'm going to be calling all the shots. So, I mean, and the thing about him was that he trusted you. He did what the studios don't do now, which is he would find a filmmaker he liked and he would hire them and he would let them do their thing.
Right.
Now, they used to finish the movies completely at Amblin. They would mix them, they would cut them, they would do the music, and then they'd take them out to preview. That's very rare. Isn't how
Universal
used to be done.
Like, what do you got, Steve?
No, he'd be the buffer between you and the studio because it was him they wanted to be in business with, not necessarily you. So he could, carry a lot of water for us.
Right.
And then when you weren't working for him, then it was back to, okay, take out the rough cut with the crayon marks on it and the big scene missing slugs, and we'll have a preview and then we'll tell you what we think of your movie. And it was usually people who would get panicked because the first time they would see the movie, it wouldn't be finished. And then they would go, well, that's the movie. That's it. That would be their impression of the movie and it would never change. If you have a bad preview with the studio there, your movie will never be good. It will always be a movie that had to be fixed. So,
right.
So smart directors started to write into their contracts that they get one preview of their own, or maybe two, so that by the time they show it to the studio, they've already fixed the problems, because there are a lot of problems. I mean, you don't know how the audience is going to take. There's so many things that can go wrong.
Yeah, there's so many.
And what if they won't get that joke because we didn't set it up right, or this scene is too long, or whatever. And so if you can go through that on your own and make those changes for yourself, then at least when you show them the movie, it's what you want it to be. It's not the horror is when you've got the movie and it's not working because it's too soon and you know exactly what's wrong with it. But there are so many things that they've now object to that you'll never get your own movie back.
Right.
It'll always be trying to fix their problem.
So I got my first movie in to Sundance when I was 23. So from there, that sadly, that was the hottest point in my career. This was at the time of like Scream was a really big movie. Right. And funny enough, Harvey Weinstein, the funny thing is I actually owe him why I have my agent that I still have to this day, funny enough. Because he was the king, and we sent the movie to Miramax, and because it got into Sundance, they were very interested in us, It got me, my agent at then ICM, who's now at WME, who's still now my agent 20 years later. And And it was a very hot point in my career, and I got offered all these studio films. And like a dumbass, I was like, no, I want to make my films. I will say no to your $250,000 paychecks.
Cut to you and Musso and Frank's talking to Orson Welles. Why make someone else's dream? Mike?
Right? Yeah, totally. and the funny thing is that I mean, he lived life, and I don't know how much we should spend on regret, but at the same time, it's like, those were really bad movies I passed on.
What'd you pass on?
There was a Chow Yun-Fat movie called The Corruptor, which I don't think many people remember. But and there was a film that I probably would have done, but again,
the Kenosha, Wisconsin Fats.
Exactly. Yes, totally. but Hollywood's a funny thing, and when you have that kind of heat and people want to work with you, you're getting thrown lots.
And the more
things.
you say no, then they're like, all right, Star Wars.
Well, but what I've learned now, what it took me 20 years to learn, is just say yes to everything. Just say yes. Well, yes, I will do that. Yes. At the time, I was offered or in talks for the Sleepy Hollow, which became Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, that's a big piece.
And I was up for American Pie, and those were the ones I was trying to get.
Yeah.
And plus my own independent films.
So how did they go about America? We got Sleepy Hollow, which is good. We got this movie about pie fucking that we really think you're gonna like.
It was the hot script, and
I was
this
other one about shit pie that some maids make in the 30s, but that's coming later.
No, it was.
We got a whole pie slate here at Universal Pictures.
It was a great script, and it was one of those rare things that just got a lot of people's attention.
Yeah.
It was just kind of the hot thing, and I was right out of Sundance, so it was just the timing was good. So there was the ones I was trying to get, and so I passed on. I don't have time for this drivel. And of course, as it goes, and you learn the hard way, your heat lasts about 5 minutes.
Right.
Other people come in, projects collapse, and then you're left with nothing. So that was the peak. I who knows? Maybe I'll get there again. Probably not.
You can, because I will say, false modesty aside, my career peak, I used to put it about 97, 98.
Right.
When I was acting on a sitcom, and I had an album and everything, and then I went on The Simpsons, and then when I left The Simpsons, my career was dead.
Oh, wow. Really?
Kelsey's nuts.
It's fascinating. Careers are fascinating that way.
I mean, I did it to myself. I could have stayed at The Simpsons, and I'd be rich and miserable and 700 pounds. And it took me 5-6 years to kind of get back. But I would say my career now is as good as it's ever been.
Oh yeah. You're show running. You're doing your thing. You're doing.
And I would have never guessed that it would have come back up.
Yeah, it is funny that way, and it is nice to see, And
I'm making almost as much now as I made in 1997. That's the beautiful thing.
Just don't have to adjust for inflation,
right, yeah.
but yeah, that's fine. After that, I was sort of back to oh, okay, well now I'm not doing big studio movies apparently. So this small film came my way called The Convent, which was all they knew was that we needed to make a movie. It was one of those kind of shady companies.
Here's the poster.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a shady company of we've got all these investors and we need to make a horror movie. So one of the interns said, they've got a project called The Convent, and that was pretty much all it went on. And so my now friend Shaitan Anderson had written the script, and we collaborated on it. And I just wanted to make my own kind of Evil Dead type movie.
Right.
And
why wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. Well, Evil Dead 2 is sort of like my film school, and that was the most important film to me growing up. So I made that movie, and that also got into Sundance, and that kind of what put me on the map for genre stuff, Fangoria and all that kind of thing. And then
what is the story of The Convent?
It's kind of very similar to Night of the Demons, where you classic plot where kids break into party and unknowingly unleash the forces of hell in an abandoned convent, and it's very bloody and fun. And Adrienne Barbeau stars in it, and it's a good time. Actually, kind of proud of it. It's one that's hard to find now, unfortunately. I get it back, I think, in 2 years.
Wow.
Lionsgate has it, but back then they made these deals for 20 years,
right?
And it's too late in the game for them to want to remaster it or do anything with it. So I'm hoping.
Oh, good for you.
Yes, hopefully 2 years from now I can get the Blu-ray out. That would be super.
Can come out on the Mendez label.
Exactly. So anyway, so that got into Sundance, and but then after that, it just sort of dried up. I did a movie called The Grave Dancers. Took 6 years to get the next one off the ground. And
was that the original title of Orgy of the Dead? Because that pretty much describes that movie.
I don't know. It'd be good though, right? Yeah. Some movies are cursed. I mean, Grave Dancers is one that I really liked the script, and I thought this is the one. This is going to be the one I'm remembered for. But sometimes it's just an uphill battle, man, and everything goes wrong. And it came out at a time that there was just a ton, like right after Saw and The Grudge, and there was just a ton of horror movies, and it didn't really break out or make a splash. And then came the real dry spell, where it's like, I don't know anything else besides making movies, because I went straight from, essentially not too far out of high school straight into making independent films. And so now I'm in my, early 30s, and then sort of like, I don't know how to do anything else. So I started.
I know that feeling.
Yeah. So
you're on the limb of the tree, sawing the limb off at the base of the tree.
Right. And so, the only thing I knew how to do was make movies. So I was like, well, I can edit, because I had to edit my own stuff. And so I started editing television shows and stuff like that for a long time. The sad part of it, I really truly believed that it was over, that I was probably never going to make another movie again. And then a friend of mine, Travis Stevens, introduced me to Epic Pictures, and they were doing a film called Dino Spider. And again, it was one of those like, really? Oh my God. I was going to be doing studio films, and now I'm at Dino Spider. But that was the reality. And it was kind of a wake up call of like, yeah, that's where you're at. What are you going to do about it? So I kind of dug deep, and I'm like, look, this doesn't have to be shitty. That's up to you, and I think a lot of people sometimes, because it's for Sci-Fi Channel, or because it's a B movie, they just sort of phone it in. And I was like, well, what if I don't phone it in? What if I really give it my all, you know? And so that's what eventually became Big Ass Spider, and got into South by Southwest and kind of relaunched my career. And then I was very excited, like, the phone's going to ring now. I'm back. And then it was Sci-Fi Channel going, well, will you make another giant spider movie? And of course there was nothing else going on. So I was like, yeah, I guess. Yeah. So out came the gem Lavalantula, starring Steve Guttenberg and the cast of Police Academy versus Lava Spiders.
This is what people always say about Ed Wood. Like, Ed was the worst filmmaker ever made. Yeah, he also made 7 fucking movies, or however many movies he made. I'm not sure the exact count.
Right.
Bobcat would know. Martin Landau. The reason Tim Burton cast him as Bela Lugosi is because Martin Landau was in North by Northwest, and then he was in the fucking Harlem Globetrotters on Gilligan's Island.
Right.
And then he went back, and then he was in Tucker. I said this to somebody, a really good friend of mine, a while ago, who's not having a great time just in their life. And I said, you will get everything you want if you just keep getting out of bed.
Right. Yeah. No,
and that's the trick. You have to just keep getting out of bed.
Right.
And Richard Nixon said, they said, like, how do you keep going? You've been impeached. He goes, I just keep getting out of bed to confound my enemies.
Yeah. No, it's true. And that's sort of like what I've come to as well.
And Big Ass Spider is great.
Oh, thank you.
Also, for people who haven't seen it, it's on iTunes. I bought it on iTunes.
And now Amazon Prime.
Prime. If you love them, or is it Mantis or what's the giant praying mantis one? I think it's called Mantis.
Yeah, it's Mantis. Yeah.
Mantis.
Yeah.
Starring Craig Stevens, who was Peter Gunn, and it's fantastic. And Big Ass Spider is those movies, but with a sense of humor. But I like it because it's the same sense of humor that Stand Against Evil has.
Right, sure.
It's people being genuinely funny the way people are genuinely funny.
Right.
In a serious horror movie.
Exactly.
The spider does not know
it's in a comedy.
Right. And the people do not know that they're not in a horror movie.
And I feel that's the way to do it. I mean,
the guy that played the guard was fantastic.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. LeVar Bayard, he's wonderful. Yes.
Yeah. Who is that guy? And Greg is terrific, and he's a strong lead, but he's also gives it up. He also lets this guy do what he does.
It was great, and I owe it completely Lombardo Boyar, and I owe it completely to Greg Grunberg, who brought him onto it. And he's like, look, because we were kind of thinking like the guy from Napoleon Dynamite or something like that, which is sort of more a typical thing. He's like, no, that's been done. Let's I got a guy we've got a great chemistry, and it was just sort of a leap of faith of like, look, this is the guy who I work best with.
He's terrific,
and it was fantastic. It was really great. I'm a little sore that we have not made a sequel, because I really want to do it, but the production company's like, it didn't make that much money, and I'm like, well, we didn't spend that much money. We could do it. So
there's this one scene where the spider's coming to a park, and there are women that are not dressed the way women normally would be dressed in a park.
Right, sure, of course, yes.
Now, is that something the production company's like, we need to see some ass?
No, that's me. That's me. That's me being a single director going like, what this park needs is just a lot of hot girls.
Yeah, in G-string cutoff.
I don't think anyone ever says that movie had too many hot girls in it, especially if you're making kind of a B kind of trashy film. And I'm not big on nudity or sex scenes or something like that, but Pretty Girls, you know, that's a lovely thing. No one's, that's good.
It's, we know what you're making.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so I thought it'd be kind of funny, especially, you know, it's supposed to be like Elysian Park, which, you know, is usually known for quinceañeras and, and barbecues and whatnot. So I'm like, no, we'll have a girls volleyball team and whatnot in there. And the other thing I like to do is it's a good chance to cast your friends and have, you know, that's what I always do on my Facebook or Twitter is, you know, it's a good way. It's a low budget trick, but I think it's an even trade.
Yeah, it's an even trade.
It is you advertise, hey, do you want to get killed by a giant spider?
Yes.
Come out this day. And I really do try to feature everybody and make it a really fun day so that they have that memory of like, oh, I'm a victim in that or whatever. And yes, it helps us because we don't have to pay everyone. Right. You know, we you know, buy you lunch.
There's two divergent youth cultures right now that I see prevalent. Certainly white, which is the super woke PC police, hyper vigilant, paranoid, hysterical wokeaholics that take just, I'm all about cultural sensitivity, but you can also ruin everything. And then bro culture, which I don't get either.
Right.
Like, it is certain. Puts me in a vast minority.
Well, here's my question.
I've never in my life unironically worn a baseball hat backwards.
I can almost not comment for fear of offending my wife.
But it's,
yes.
No, I wear sweatpants when I'm sleeping. Or when I'm at the gym.
Right, at the gym.
I just
you write too, right?
Yeah, but I don't.
You write at home?
But I get dressed.
Oh,
I'm not
okay.
like Nixon. When Nixon wrote his memoirs in San Clemente, he put on a suit. It's just a different culture. Nothing wrong about it. It's just, I feel very isolated from it. Like, I see people and comedians. There's a lot of comedians, guys I like. Joe Rogan, I really like, is a guy. Joe Rogan's a great guy. And he and I we're like from, I'm from Venus and he's from Mars, which is like totally different. Like a total.
You eat quiche.
He's just like a total bro dude. And he's, again, I'm not shitting on him. He's a really, really genuine, real guy. I really like him. But it was just like, we have so little in common.
He doesn't wear backwards.
Yeah, he's a guy. Yeah. No, he's normal. I'm not.
I don't know.
I'm not.
But that's now you're talking about adults. I mean, when you're talking about kids before,
if you have a baseball hat on backwards and you're 4,
right,
so much win.
Yes. But no, I used to play baseball in the neighborhood in the lot.
But if you have a mortgage,
11,
you have a mortgage, spin that fucker around.
Yeah, I'm with you.
That's me.
I have hope for kids. I have.
Oh, every generation thinks that the generation behind them is ruining the culture.
But I find that the ones I actually know never fall into any of those weird camps.
Yeah.
I read these articles about millennials, but I have these amazing nieces and nephew who should be. Their mothers are lesbians. They live in this lefty lesbian enclave. You know, one is Chinese. Then, you know,
you're describing my family.
Oh, and I mean, and their friends are as multicultural as you come. And I still remember, and they're so political and so smart. And they're not woke implies that they were ever asleep. They just sort of
right.
But I remember
to them it's mind boggling.
There was an amazing piece in Slate a while back about how some guy was reconsidering his affection for, God damn it, what's the card game where you say terrible things? Cards Against Humanity.
Oh yeah, it's an awesome card.
And, it was some white guy going, you know, I have to rethink my affection. And he's going through all the terrible stuff and how bad he felt because I looked around and all my white friends and we actually read it aloud while my nieces and nephew and their friends who were as completely and utterly multicultural as you could get were sitting there saying they were playing Cards Against Humanity and laughing their asses off. And this white boy out in the suburbs is going like, I don't think I'm being sensitive enough.
I'm not sure. Oh, gee.
Yeah. You can take it all too far. But no, I that's the thing about being like into monster movies when you're being into horror movies when you're a kid. You were always the outcast kid.
Yes.
Horror movies it was the safe base for adolescents who didn't really fit in with other groups. And it was the group, David Letterman described it best. I was in the group that made fun of all the other groups.
I'm the outcast of my own marriage. My wife hates horror movies. It's once a year, you know, it's
really,
she'll watch one with me. Yeah.
And yet you got married.
Yeah. She's got redeeming qualities.
She's got redeeming qualities for sure.
And but here's the terrible thing. It's a terrible thing. God, I heard something.
My ex-wife turned me on to Dario Argento.
My wife ran screaming out of the room 10 minutes into Suspiria.
Right. No, my wife, I knew about that and Tenebrae and all that stuff because of my ex-wife.
That's fantastic. Yeah. No, Nancy, every year I do this big marathon of like a 10-hour carefully curated Halloween movie festival. And the last couple of years I've been sort of starting with easier films, less frightening. And she actually sits through the first few, and then I always know the moment she's going to run screaming out of the room. But she'll come to that.
So let's go through those titles. Are you programming it for
I haven't even started
this
this year. But, I'll start with something like I Forget Everything. But, last year we did, oh God, what's the thing with Strother Martin about the small town full of witches, the TV movie.
Oh yeah,
and we did something like that, and then you do some. I found this short,
Cool Hand Lucretia. I believe that was called.
There's a short that was directed, one of the first movies ever made by a woman. I think it's called Suspense. It's about 12 minutes long, but it's this really great silent short about a stalker in a house.
Great.
Stuff like that goes in between. I don't even remember. I'd have to pull up a list, but I always try to end with. And somehow you just feel it through the ether. You know what the great sort of little indie horror film this year is without seeing it. We did Trick or Treat one year. I knew that was, and it was, it had just come out, but I'd heard all the right things. That killed. And if it's not that, then we'll close with.
That's an anthology, right?
Yeah. It's fantastic.
It's no Tales of Halloween, but whatever.
And then we did that one. We did Tales of Halloween.
I only say it because I'm in it.
But that's right. Yes. But or we'll close.
How could it be bad?
Suspiria came out on Blu-ray a few years ago.
Right.
We close with Suspiria.
There's a lot of Suspiria in Big Eyes. The third
I'm trying to figure out if it's a bit.
Nope. The third act of Big Eyes, when they're in the house, it's lit like an Argento movie. There's like blue and red, and
that's so funny.
They told me.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
they told you. So there you go.
There's been a lot of great horror movies that have just come, like past couple of years.
Yeah,
there's been a really resurgence of really great stuff.
Yeah, I mean, although sometimes there's you get numb. You do what we do long enough, and I won't say the film because it got great reviews. Everyone loved it, but I went with my friend Dan to see something a couple of years ago that was sort of the horror movie. And we sat there and thought beautifully directed, and it was like, And I came home.
It Follows?
And, very much enjoyed that. No, it was. I enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah.
But this was.
Because I love that, but it doesn't scare me.
It doesn't scare you. But don't you want to be.
Horror movies have never scared me. I enjoy them. I love them, but they don't scare me.
I love every now and then, and especially if you bring someone who's easily scared, you can sort of feed off them like a vampire,
right?
And feel their fear. That's really sick.
Do you go through horror Halloween mazes still?
Sure.
Do you ever do that? Do you get scared in them? No, I laugh.
Yeah.
I laugh. Laughing and screaming are cousins. They do the same thing. Involuntary reflexes that release tension.
But I remember 28 Days Later.
28 Days is great.
There were moments in that where I was just, I can't say, I'm not terrified for my life, but I'm revved up. The adrenaline's going. You're going,
Oh, suspense.
Yeah.
I think the last movie, like The Exorcist, scared me when I saw it.
Weirdly enough, I think maybe because I was raised without any religion, that movie had I saw it as a kid.
Right.
Had nothing. I mean, I watch it. I appreciate it. It's still Exorcist 3. Great movie.
Great movie.
Exorcist 3 is fantastic.
Right.
But I came home.
Now, was that the one that was Paul Schrader originally directed?
No. That's the one Blatty wrote and directed himself with George C. Scott.
Right. George C. Scott with the girl on the ceiling.
It's got the incredible. There's one sequence that was one of the scariest things you'll ever see in a horror film. With the.
Yeah. I'm going to give that. Exorcist 3. This is a good.
It's so good.
Sequels that shouldn't be good that are good. Yeah. I would put Exorcist 3. You know what else is a good sequel? Psycho 2.
Oh, yeah.
Psycho 2 is a really good sequel. Yes. And who wants to be the guy? We have an idea for a movie. What's it called?
Yeah.
Psycho 2. Get the fuck out.
Well, isn't that was the guy who did Road Games, I think, right?
Yes, but it's really good.
Who was a Hitchcock fanatic.
Yeah, and it's a really good movie. And most importantly, it's a great story.
Yeah.
I like a story. Granted, I am a writer, so that's the only thing I can contribute is the story.
Correct.
But when Alien Covenant came out, I showed my oldest daughter, who loves horror movies, Aliens. So she could. We're gonna go see Alien Covenant. So you go see Alien, then he goes, and I was like, Aliens.
Did you show her the first Alien?
I showed her the first Alien, and I explained to she's a super savvy kid, and I was like, this is basically a haunted house movie. Only instead of a ghost in a house, it's a monster in a spaceship, but same movie. And she got that. She goes, yeah, I get that, which is great. And then Aliens is just a chase movie. The Aliens is basically the Poseidon adventure with people trying to kill you as you go with
what I love
Hackman
is they're two very different films. It's not the usual.
Totally different genres.
Yeah.
Aliens is an action movie.
Yes.
It's not a horror movie.
And so she got that. And the plot in Aliens is the plot of one of my favorite movies of the past couple of years, Mad Max Fury Road. What's the plot? We got to go from A to B, and then we got to go from B to A. Yeah. And that's basically Aliens. Like, that's still a plot, but it has a plot.
Yes.
But you'll know where I'm going with this because we had this conversation before. And things that I love and that I want to love and that are sort of critic proof, like you can't say it's not good because it makes you look like a hillbilly. A little show called Twin Peaks Season 3.
But I gotta lay out
wanted to love it.
I am so on your team. My friend Dan Waters, which is how I know.
Oh, yeah.
Which is how I know Larry.
Yeah. And Larry is how I know Dan. So
and I am always getting on Dan. Dan is a great screenwriter. He is a traitor. He is the worst traitor to what we do. I feel like sometimes I just need to sacrifice him to the writer gods. He will walk out of movies that make no sense, where no one gives a shit about telling a story right. And you just, I loved it. It looked great. And you're like, who cares how it fucking looked? I'm that guy. I learned how to write movies by watching Charlie Varick. God damn it.
Charlie Varick, which has one of the immutable laws of cinema.
Yes.
Women find middle-aged Walter Matthau hot.
Yes.
Yes. We talked about
hairy knuckles and all.
Yeah, hairy knuckles and all. He looks like a partially shaved baboon. And it's also like that scene in The Big Sleep when Humphrey Bogart goes into the bookstore where Dorothy Lamour is working. And Dorothy Lamour looks like God went, I'm going to make somebody that's going to fuck everybody up. This woman's so hot. And Humphrey Bogart walks in this bookstore looking like McGruff the crime dog. And she's like, hello. I was like, no.
I would say even more impressed. And here's where I would fuck Humphrey Bogart. Are you insane? But the great thing, the even better thing about Matthau, Bogey just walks in there and she's all over him. And
he's playing a gay guy when he walks in. He's playing a 40s gay guy.
Oh, good Lord.
He has a bow tie and he puts up his hat like a goofball.
It's been so long.
And he goes excuse me, ma'am. Like, not again. Like
you get a point.
Yeah.
But I would point out.
And she's still like, I'm going to.
Matthau's plan. Bogey just walks in.
Yeah.
Matthau's plan involves, I will knock on this woman's door. She will open the door to me, who I've never met, and within 10 minutes we'll be having sex.
Yeah.
He plans that. His whole plan falls apart if that doesn't happen. And of course it works.
You know why? You know why he has
his Matthau?
It's like, do you know the jazz singer Anita O'Day?
I know of.
Okay. It's like a jazz singer Anita O'Day, jazz singer Julie London, maybe.
Sure. Yep.
Diana Krall.
Yep.
And Walter Matthau. Their voices are audio sex. It's just like, you know what I'd like to do to you? You know what we're going to do right now? Those pants, that blouse is coming off. Have you ever heard that?
Jesus Christ.
Felix, the blouse is coming off, Felix. Was Twilight Zone the first movie you made with Amblin?
Yes, Twilight Zone was. Well, I was working on Gremlins already.
Right, but Gremlins was 84.
Right, and Twilight Zone was 83. But while I was working on Gremlins, which had a long lead time, the idea of the Twilight Zone movie came up, and John Landis and Stephen were going to do the movie, and they wanted to have one more story, and I happened to be there, and they took me out to lunch at Hamptons and asked me if I would be part of the movie, and I said, sure, I love the Twilight Zone.
Yeah. But then they had another one. Then
George Miller came in to visit one day, and Stephen said, oh, there's George Miller. Let's have him do one. And I thought, geez, how many stories are there going to be? And it obviously changed a lot while we were making the movie because of all the things that went on. And happened. But it was a great break for me, and it was a great break for George. And in fact, it was the best breaks that we ever had.
And oddly, nothing against anybody, because I don't know George Miller and I don't know Steven Spielberg, but I'm sure they're both great. And I love John. I've known him, worked for him. You're and George Miller, the last two guys in there, I think are the two best stories in that movie.
Well, that's how George and I lucked out, because we were coming basically from nowhere. I mean, there were people who had seen our previous work, but not that much. And Stephen and John were quite famous. And their episodes, John's for reasons that are
beyond his
control. And Stephen, because the episode he was going to do, he decided not to do because it involved children at night. And that tied into the problems that had happened with John. So he picked a different episode.
Was he going to do the wishing pool?
No. He was going to do a new one.
A new one?
A new story, a Halloween story.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't a remake. See, that was the thing. I thought that I said, geez, there's so many great stories that haven't been done. Why are we doing remakes? And Warner's wanted remakes. They were very serious about the remakes. I agree with you. And so Steven chose Kick the Can to remake, which I didn't think was even very good when it was new. Mm-hmm. And then I did one.
Yeah, there are much better ones to make.
I did one that was great. It's a Good Life. It was a great episode. But the only reason I did it was because they had the original story by Jerome Bixby, and I read it, and I thought, if I change this enough, they might not know that it's a remake until like the middle. Because the problem was that the Twilight Zone often existed on O. Henry twists.
Right.
And once you've seen the episode, you know the twist.
So much so, they came to be known as Rod Serling twists.
Well, yeah, exactly. And so the idea would be that, well, everybody's going to know these stories. They're all going to sit there and watch them happen, which happens to be what happened with George's. But George's is so well produced and so well acted and so well directed that it transcends being a remake. I mean, it's just a different version of that story.
Yeah.
Because the Twilight Zones were done very cheaply and very quickly.
Right. I remember seeing it when it came out, and the two images that really stick with me from the entire film was just Lithgow screaming, sitting in that chair screaming, and the camera maneuver, and the most chilling goddamn shot was when you pan back and reveal that he's removed his sister's mouth. And
Mike Nichols told me that freaked out his kids.
Good job.
But to be on the set for George's episode, they had this giant airplane that was hanging. Right, with the guy named Larry Cedar was up on this in this costume with wind machines and fog machines and thunder and lightning. It was thrilling to see. I mean, it was just great. And then
he was just coming off Road Warrior.
He's just coming off Road Warrior, and George's trick, which he still does, if he wants to register fear on the face of a character, he puts these sort of balloons in the actor's eyes. One day they were bringing John Lithgow in, and he was blinded because he couldn't see. So they were bringing him on to do his close-up. And it's when he sees the monster for the first time. And the way George cuts it, what they do is they quickly inflate the eyeballs so that they become these giant balloons. And then he just cuts it at the point where you can tell what it is. All you get is this impression. He does it a lot in Road Warrior with Vernon Wells. Lots of shots of Vernon Wells. The eyes are like this.
It's not horribly dangerous.
It's all fine. But it's very.
Oddly, I watched Road Warrior last night, sort of absentmindedly while doing some other stuff, just because I love the. Did you see the new one?
I
love the new one.
It's unbelievably good.
It's so good. And the Great Humongous, I had in an episode of The Simpsons a character named the Great Humongous. Not the same Great Humongous, but it was.
Well, any humongous in a story.
Any humongous is great, but I just love. I didn't know that. It seems like very dangerous. It seems like it could damage your eyelids.
No. It's all outside your eye.
Oh, it's all outside your eye.
It's a fake eye. It's a fake eye. Over your eye.
Oh, now that makes sense. That makes sense. But
Stop about giving away trade secrets.
Your story, now it's all computers. But your story, which is it's a Good Life.
Mm-hmm. They don't have titles in the movie. Right. They only have titles on the TV show.
But it was based on too with Bill Mumy. Was he in? Not in. Was he? Did he
was in
cameo?
it.
Yeah, cameo. It was designed like he loved cartoons, so it was designed like a Warner Brothers cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
You have one of the things that like people don't when they just know. Oh yeah, Joe Dante, the Howling, Gremlins. You also have an incredibly close relationship with Warner Brothers cartoons, and you're friends with Chuck Jones.
Mm-hmm.
So, did Chuck Jones see your segment of the Twilight Zone?
I don't think I met Chuck. I don't think I met Chuck until after I had shot it.
Yeah,
and that's when I put him in Gremlins.
Of that stuff.
Yeah, well, and also doing it at Warner Brothers, we had access to all the sound effects, and we had access to all the music, and so we could really create a world where on every TV screen there's some comment going on about what's going on in the foreground. And I mean, it's really a stage play, kind of, when you think about it.
Yes, it is. It would have been a great Grand Guignol modern day stage play. I would love to do that as a stage play with practical effects and stuff like that. Would be great.
It was, and Rob Bottin did practical effects, and they were monsters that would all be CG now.
Right.
But it was a lot of fun. I mean, I couldn't believe they were letting me get away with this. I mean,
right.
And in reality, I realized that what had happened was that because of the accident and because of the controversy, they had decided they did still want the movie because it was going to have Spielberg in it.
Right.
But they didn't really want to take responsibility for it. So there was really nobody from the studio paying much attention to the movie. And it was just me and Amblin, Kathy Kennedy and Frank Marshall and Steven. And they let me do whatever I wanted. And so I'm thinking, this is pretty good, this movie making. You go to this big studio, they give you all this money and all these people who know what they're doing and these big sound stages, and they let you do whatever you want. What a great job this is. And George felt the same way. And then, of course, George made his next picture, Witches of Eastwick, which they just fucked with him royally.
Constantly, yeah.
And I did Gremlins, which they left me alone for, but then when they saw it, they hated it. So,
amazing.
So it was an interesting period, but I'll always be grateful.
Did you come up with the story for Gremlins?
No, Chris Columbus wrote it on spec. It was a spec script. It wasn't even something that his agent really thought would probably get made. And I guess he sent it around town, and Steven saw it and thought, and I had my rep was that I had been doing cheap horror pictures. I'd just done the Howling. And I think he figured, well, I could make this picture for fairly cheap. It's a horror picture, probably make some money. He wanted to make it in Oregon at the Osmond Brothers Studios.
Naturally, but they were making a lot of porn at the time.
Well, I talked him out of that because I said, look, you can't shoot this in real locations. These characters are not going to look real unless they're in a stylized background. So we really should shoot it on the back lot. It should be a movie town, like It's a Wonderful Life. It should be a fable.
That's really well observed.
And so there's not a lot. There's very little daylight in that movie in terms of seeing the monsters. I mean, they never go out in the daytime because that's part of the plot.
Did you co-write the movie?
I did a polish on it.
The script is great because it starts very small, and you have the first act is the spider is growing, so it's small and manageable. So that's one kind of movie, and then it becomes the Deadly Mantis, and then it becomes Godzilla.
Right, exactly. Yeah, totally.
And so you have three separate acts, three separate phases, and the effects are great
for that kind of movie, for that budget movie. Yeah, for sure.
Was that your first time with CG of that kind? Because
they're
really good.
It was certainly a crapshoot, and I remember the first time my eyes rolled so hard. It's nice to be wrong sometimes. I mean, sometimes you are so sure that that is the worst idea. This is going to be terrible. They told me we have these great effects guys in Pakistan, and I'm like, are you serious? First off, I was worried that we were modeling all these buildings of downtown LA and wiring them money. Okay, so I'm like, now first off, we're on every FBI watch list.
Right,
now.
Exactly. Here are the blueprints to the tallest building in Los Angeles.
But Pakistan is one of the largest populations in the world. There's not talented people there.
Sure, of course,
and that's one of those things that you don't think of it. You just feel like, oh my god, that's it's a third world country. It's going to be
By the way, at the time, it was where Osama bin Laden was living.
No, absolutely. You kind of question what kind of computers do they have there?
The Simpsons it was all animated in Korea.
Right. North Korea, funny enough. Who knew?
North Korea, funny enough.
Straight enough.
By U.S. prisoners of war.
But to our surprise, they blew us away. I mean, they went, I think they had something to prove. And it was just that fortuitous kind of moment where, we were trying to do something above and beyond, and they wanted to showcase that they could do it.
It's always good. One of the things that I have learned as I have been forced into adult responsibility by being a producer is if you have a job that is at 5, don't get somebody who's at 7 and brag that you got them to do your thing that's at 5.
Right.
Get somebody who's at 4 that wants to get their ass to 5.
No, yeah, that's actually wonderful advice because the 7 will phone it in and feel that they're doing you a favor.
We get this guy to do that.
Exactly. And sometimes we get a big special effects house or a big whatever. And great, we got a big special effects house to phone it in and do a kind of a crappy job.
Right.
As opposed to someone who is hungry and really wants something improvement. And they did a phenomenal job. I mean, it was just good timing and it all worked out. And again, much like I was talking about Grave Dancer, sometimes you just have bad luck with a movie. The opposite is true. And sometimes things fall into place and you have great luck. And I think everything with Big Ass Spider, for whatever reason, just had a good energy, had a good vibe. We were all working towards the same thing. And it just turned out kind of, far more special than I think any of us intended, I remember when I signed on to it going like, all right, well, I just won't like talk about it. And it'll be one of those movies I'll sweep under the rug or whatever, just to kind of like, you'll use it as an exercise. And then it ended up being something I'm really proud of.
Yeah, it's great. It's terrific. And it's a Big Ass Spider comes out, and then you go through this sort of, as you said, you went through a drought after a while.
But no, I mean, actually,
you did
right
a lot of similar things.
It was first Lavalantula, which was a Sci-Fi Channel movie. It's just funny. You try to build a better Sci-Fi Channel movie and the only offer that comes in is another Sci-Fi Channel movie.
Right.
So, but whatever. It's all good. I appreciate to be working.
Like that's the Sharknado franchise too, right? Is it the same?
It's not the same company, but it was of the same ilk and certainly of the same type of thing. Channel,
right?
Yes.
In the last Sharknado film, which you need to see or you don't understand the questions left unanswered in the previous Sharknado
of course,
film,
yes, totally.
There's some stuff in the water. There are people in the water that looks so bad. It's like, you should have just put them in some water and filmed it. Well, I mean, is there a feel that they need to go out of their way to make everything a computer effect?
I mean, that one's difficult because, I mean, they're such a big machine at this point, the Asylum, and that movie is so well known that they have to promise bigger and bigger and get bigger actors. But I think a lot of the times I am guessing here. I don't know for a fact. I get the impression they're like, well, who cares about the effects? The shittier they are, it's kind of a charm. Right. So let's not, because they're very big on 2D effects of just like, no, we'll just have it come in front of the
that's what
of
it
the
was.
frame, and it's kind of like, I don't know about that. But anyway, so I was given a choice of like, well, you can sit at home all summer, or you can have Steve Guttenberg and reunite the cast of Police Academy and have them fight lava spiders. And I did. I had a great time making that, funny enough, because I like the idea. And I'd like to do this more of taking casts of old movies.
That's a great idea.
And then putting them in bad genre films.
I'm assuming Bobcat was not in Lava Spider.
I don't think it was sold well to him. We made the offer.
Because it sounds like something he would have loved to have done.
He's
also a very different person than he was.
I made him an offer, but again, I don't think he understood what it was. Right. I don't think he realized the whole cast was coming back. Right. I think we offered him $1,000 for 4 hours to play the director at the beginning of the movie, which would have been great for him because he's a director, and it
I'll ask him what he thought about it.
I don't know if he saw it, and I know they made a two Lantula, which sadly I was not a part of. And again, I like that idea. I'd love to see like the Breakfast Club, fight vampires.
That's a great idea,
or whatnot. And then I rolled right into Tales of Halloween, which was more of I had just the attitude of like, look, all my friends are filmmakers. Wouldn't it be great? Let's not think about the money or me in the limelight. Let's just do something that really showcases this amazing horror community that we have in Los Angeles that is really bonded by the love of the genre.
Right.
And everyone, yourself included, thank you, was willing to do it for $100 a day,
right.
And I know, right? And that's the thing, is that everybody in there is in there for the love of it.
Absolutely.
No one is there for the paycheck or anything like that. It was just like, this sounds like a cool project.
Totally.
This is fun. And I loved making it. I mean, it was a pain in the ass, especially since I got zero money and I spent 1.5 years making it.
Did that turn a profit in the end of the day?
I think it did. Not so much for me, but I think we're toying with the idea of doing a second one. The thing is that when you've done a favor-based movie,
right,
it's not like you can do it every year. Like,
sure,
come out again, but you can do it every 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And because the main thing is, I don't want to ever feel like we're taking advantage of people.
Sure.
It's like, we're not making any money, so we're passing the buck on to you.
I'll tell you now, I do it again because I'm thinner now and a better actor.
Okay, perfect. All right, you're on. So we're toying with the idea of getting the band back together.
I just remember at one point I get impaled on a fence post, and it was about 5 a.m, and the blood went out my back and down my pants.
Right.
It wasn't heated. And we shot that in December. Just imagine freezing cold water going down the back of your pants. Follow the arc of where the water goes.
But I'm sure it woke you up. I'm sure you're awake for the rest of the night.
I was wide awake.
Which is good. So.
Yeah.
You realize, of course, if it were the 70s, you would be an action star.
I would be. I have that because I do look like... Jesus. The older I get, the more I look like my favorite shoes.
But it's crazy. You look back, those guys, they were such I don't know. I sound like an old man. Never mind. I'm not going to.
No, you're a cineast. What is it? What were you?
No, I was driving down the street yesterday, and there's billboards all over for this new Dynasty show.
Oh,
now I'm not.
Thank God.
I don't think I ever watched an episode of Dynasty.
Oh,
it was, if you recall back in the day, I was like, this is why TV's so awful.
Yeah.
But I will say, John Forsythe, Joan Collins, they were bigger than life.
Yeah,
they were archetypes.
Yeah.
They were distinct. I mean, Lynn
Yeah.
Evans, not she was kind of blonde and you'd seen her before, but I look at this poster and you could take the brunette's face and put it in Blake Carrington's face and Blake Carrington's face and the blonde and the brunette's.
It's all this.
You wouldn't.
It's all glop. Yeah, it's all glop.
It's crazy.
But my favorite actors today are those. There are, those actors are still out there. Like my two favorite actors, and I don't really know if I'm pronouncing his last name right. Bill Nighy.
Bill Nighy, yes.
Who I will read the goddamn Phone Book. He's so good.
Best movie this year.
Which
tell me the other one, then I'll tell you the best movie this year.
I haven't even seen him in a movie this year.
No, the other actor.
Oh, John C. Reilly.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. I have great.
Yeah.
So, best movie of the year. Far and away, this movie about Dunkirk.
Yes. Did Bill Nighy in it?
Yeah. Oh, I'm not talking about the Christopher Nolan thing. That's an amusement park ride. This is a movie called Their Finest. It's now on iTunes. It's Gemma Arterton. I don't know. She plays a woman during World War II who is hired to bring a female perspective to some movies that the British Ministry of Information are making. And she finds these two girls who took a boat to Dunkirk and they make a move during the attack.
Right.
And they make a movie about it. And Bill Nighy plays one of the stars of the film. And it is hands down the best movie I've seen this year.
I'm going to watch it tonight.
Amazing. I just love saying, that Dunkirk movie.
Their Finest. And it's on iTunes now?
It's on iTunes right now. It's phenomenal. It's so good.
If you're a fan of Bill Nighy, I'm trying to think of what people know him most as. I guess it's from Notting Hill. Is that the movie? Where
people know Bill Nighy if they're listening.
Really? I don't know. He did this. You can only watch it on Amazon. He did this series, 3 movies for the BBC.
Just got the Blu-rays.
Of a detective. I know the middle one is called Turks and Caicos.
Yeah, The Spy.
Johnny Walker.
Yes.
Those movies.
They're great.
They're on Blu-ray now?
Yeah. I just got this. It's called the Walker Trilogy.
That's Walker. I'm going to buy it right now.
It was like $12.
And what Bill Nighy can do is, and Lance Henriksen can do this too. Nothing.
Yeah.
And he's doing everything.
Yes.
He can sit there and be so still and you cannot take your eyes off him.
Yeah.
And you know who his favorite actor is?
Dana Gould.
Steve Martin.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Really?
He is obsessed with Steve Martin.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And he has weird hands.
Okay.
Bill Nighy. Look at his hands. He's got he has some weird disease in his hands.
He like James Coburn, remember at the end when?
Yeah. Or John Carradine and everything.
Yeah. No, there's a scene in
We're talking about John Carradine's arthritis, ladies and gentlemen. And if you can't keep up with us, you're listening to the wrong
Everyone
podcast.
knows what you're talking about. There's a scene in Their Finest where Bill Nighy's got to do full-on dramatic Bill Nighy and full-on comic Bill Nighy in the same moment. And it's
masterful.
He's so good.
Yeah, he's so good. And
so good.
He also did a movie with the actress who was Steve Buscemi's wife on Luck. That Irish actress, I can't think of her name. Gorgeous.
Okay.
Gorgeous. And they play he's like a political aide at a big conference like in Sweden. And she's like a junior and they have an affair.
Yes.
And like this whole movie takes place in this terrible antiseptic hotel. And it's fantastic. They're both so good.
He's always And what's the first thing I ever noticed him in was the one where he was it was the one about the band getting back together.
Yes, yeah.
With the guy from who wrote or was the director of With Neil and I.
Right. God damn it! Now I got to know the name of that movie.
I do have a little fancy computer here on my.
There's With Neil and I, and then there was How to Succeed in Advertising.
Yeah, no, those are phenomenal.
Which is completely underrated movie.
Yes, and
Richard E. Grant, underrated actor, another amazing actor.
Love Richard E. Grant. I got to work with him on Warlock. I was the art department coordinator.
See, this is the thing. You're a writer, but you've had every job.
I kind of have. I never worked in the camera department. That's pretty much it. I've done about everything else. Bruce Robinson was the director.
Right.
And he acted in Still Crazy.
Right.
Yes.
And the other guy that's really good is Peter Capaldi is one of those actors.
Yeah,
it's just like so interesting and everything they do. So we talked about this when I did Trailers from Hell. We did my 5 favorite horror movies. and 3 movies that I wish people knew about. All 3 of mine were Emmanuel and Bangkok with Sylvia Christel. which is probably the first quasi-porn movie I ever saw because we had a very early form of pay TV when I was a kid.
But you watched it?
No, we had it. I guess.
You actually,
but it was still edited.
Because I remember we used to get, what was the thing where your regular TV would get these signals, but they were coded?
Yeah, they were coded.
If you adjusted your antenna right, you could just see boobies every now and then.
We had them, but they were still edited. So it was just an exercise in frustration. But it was why, like, when I was in 9th grade, I saw, like, Manhattan, Apocalypse Now, all these movies every day because they were just the same 4 movies on every day. So what are your, for today, because we know it changes.
Oh, Jesus.
We know it changes.
We let you prepare.
Yeah.
What, the obscure ones that people ought to know about?
Yeah. Or just
top of my list. The movie I am always, I did a Trailers from Hell commentary on this, and I was so vociferous in my love for it that, Joe Dante went off and saw it and still thinks I'm insane. Bad Boy Bubby is...
Bad Boy Bubby?
Bad Boy Bubby is a
I have no idea what you're
phenomenal film. It's Australian director Rolf de Heer.
Is it sort of like an Australian Bad Ronald?
No. It is the story.
Underrated movie, Bad
What's
Ronald?
the movie? There was something last year that sort of vaguely reminiscent. Was The Room? Anyway, it's about a guy in his 30s who's been raised entirely in this one room by his mother, who has told him
what could go wrong?
She's told him there's been a nuclear Armageddon.
Oh my God.
And that she has a gas mask that will only work for her. So she goes out to get things, and he believes he's living in this. They're the only survivors in humanity. Clearly it's not good for him. He's not all there.
Right.
He is his mother's only means of sexual gratification.
Oh, no. Gee.
The first, I was
going to say, how is this a horror movie?
It's not a horror film. It's not a horror film. The first 30 minutes or so
I beg to differ.
are grueling.
Say that if you saw my mother.
Through a variety of events. He gets out in the world.
Here's the weird thing. His mother played by Walter Matthau.
Exactly right. No, she's
the whole world is dead now. Come on in the bed and give some to your mom.
And then he goes out in the world, and hilarity ensues. But it's an amazing film. It's really dark. It's really funny. It's really beautiful. For some reason, he used, I think, 20 different DPs intentionally, and it was one of those movies that. It really does split people. I think most
Bad
of the time.
Boy Bubby.
Yeah. Well worth looking for. It's available.
What year was it made?
Sometime in the 90s. I saw a screening of it at the New Art when it had its brief release here and was just knocked out. It was just an amazing film.
When you bring incest into a movie, it really does cut your audience way down.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I remember Spanking the Monkey?
Sure.
Like everybody was like, oh, this is a good movie. Oh, gee.
Oh, yeah, but I'll say, to be fair, his mother was hot in that. I mean, this...
not if she's your mom, she's not.
She's an actress, Dana. It's...
In the reality of the story.
But I should show you, but the mother in Bad Boy Bubby is just not someone. Right. I don't mean to be. I'm sure this is improper. You really don't want to see either of them naked.
Sure, that's fine. You can say that.
But it's a phenomenal film.
Wow,
that is definitely.
I thought you were going to say Jaws.
Oh yeah, there's this movie about a shark. I don't think people know it.
Yeah.
It's a wide shot. There's lots of mist, and it comes into the hand on the door. Opens it up. It's Ron Jeremy with a pizza.
Hold that thought.
It's back. Stand Against Evil. Brand new Wednesdays at 10. Starts November 1st on IFC.
Here in person tonight, White Horse Drive-In Theater, The Trial of the Dead. 18 living nightmares leap from the stage. All lights go out, and the monsters are released from their coffins. They may grab you. Victims from the audience will be thrown from the stage a piece at a time. Human heads chopped off. Jungle worms and swamp rats run around your feet. Extra on stage, back from the grave. The spirit materialization of Bruce Lee, King of Kung Fu. It's real. On stage, not a movie. You may need help. Help! Help! Tonight, White Horse Drive-In Theater.
You spend 1/3 of your life sleeping, so you should be comfortable. Casper brand mattresses combine multiple supportive memory foams for a quality sleep surface with the right amount of both sink and bounce. You heard me, gals. Casper mattresses provide all the support the human body needs in all the right places. Oh my. Breathable design helps you sleep cool and regulate your body temperature throughout the night. They're designed, developed, and assembled in the United States and delivered right to your door in a small, how-do-they-do-that sized box. You can be sure of your purchase with Casper's 100-night risk-free Sleep On It trial, with free shipping and returns in the U.S. and Canada. Start sleeping ahead of the curve with Casper. Get $50 towards any mattress purchase by visiting casper.com/Dana and using the promo code Dana at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. You heard that right. $50 towards any mattress purchase by visiting casper.com, CASPER.com/Dana and using the promo code Dana at checkout. Terms and conditions apply.
Halloween, Halloween, ooh, Halloween. Ghostly things are gonna happen. Ooh, ah, ooh, ah.
And now, a tale well calculated to keep you in suspense.
He was born in Detroit, Michigan in 1926, but moved to Los Angeles early enough in life to attend Beverly Hills High School. He studied industrial engineering at Stanford. His education was interrupted by a little thing called World War II, in which he served in the Navy. He then returned to Stanford and got a degree in industrial engineering. Good, solid work. Man's work. His first job was at U.S. Electrical Motors, right here in the City of Angels. He worked in his chosen field for which he had prepared for many, many years with diligent study for a total of 4 days. After which, he walked into his boss's office and said, "I've made a terrible mistake," and he quit. From there, Roger Corman followed his brother Gene into the movie business. His first job was in the mailroom at 20th Century Fox, and he eventually worked his way up to story reader. Now, a story reader is a person employed by a studio who reads every script, every book, every short story, every article that comes in over the transom. They then write a summary called coverage, and they give their opinion as to whether or not they feel the project is worth pursuing. Corman stumbled across one property. He recommended it very strongly, and then after it was picked up, contributed several ideas that were incorporated into the final film. That film was The Gunfighter, starring Gregory Peck. And for his hard work, Corman was awarded nothing. No credit, no bonus, no nothing. So, Corman left Fox. In fact, he left Hollywood. He moved to Paris, but eventually ended up studying English literature at Oxford. He made his way back to Hollywood and wrote a script for what would eventually be known as Highway Dragnet. He was paid $2,000, which he immediately sunk into his next movie. He invested his own money, gathered up a small group of investors, and made Monster from the Ocean Floor.
Deep down in the strange, lurid, murky depths of the Pacific are fantastic, horribly grotesque creatures of the sea that challenge man's courage as no earthly creatures can.
Now that sounds like a lot of confusing nonsense.
Here is the first undersea battle ever photographed between a giant killer shark and a woman.
Well, now I'm listening. Corman took his Monster from the Ocean Floor money and rolled it into another film, Apache Woman, starring Lloyd Bridges, not in the title role. And then an apocalyptic science fiction film, The Day the World Ended. As Corman's filmography grew, he began getting inquiries and offers from the big studios. But Corman always took the power over the money, which is great advice. He stayed in control of his properties, whether writing, directing, or producing. The trick to doing that was keeping his budgets low. And so Corman was more apt to pass on offers from Columbia or 20th Century Fox, and more prone to accept offers from companies like the American Releasing Company, run by two like-minded fellows named James Nicholson and Samuel Arkoff. Now, during this period, Corman purchased a script from a guy named Curtis Harrington called The Girl from Beneath the Sea. It took a while, but this film was eventually made in 1961, directed by Harrington, produced by Corman, and starring a young, baby-faced Dennis Hopper. The film was eventually called Night Tide. See it if you can. It's out there. Night Tide is great. It plays like a cross between Carnival of Souls and The Little Mermaid, and I think you'll love it. Now, it's the mid-1950s, and a lot of things in society, a lot of elements come together at once. Madison Avenue invents a new marketing demographic called the American teenager. The exploding post-war economy put cars in everyone's garages, drive-in movie theaters pop up all over the country like dandelions, and Roger Corman finds himself in the perfect position to supply the product for the demand these drive-in movie screens had. Now, by this time, the American Releasing Company had changed its name to American International Pictures, or AIP. And Roger Corman, James Nicholson, and Sam Arkoff were poised to make B, and sometimes C and D, movie history. First up, It Conquered the World, a sequel somewhat to The Day the World Ended. It Conquered the World hit the screens in 1956, was produced by Arkoff and Nicholson, directed by Corman, and featured a monster designed and built by Paul Blaisdell, with an assist from our very own Bob Burns. The monster looks pretty much like an upside-down ice cream cone with big fangs and long arms. It is beautifully, gloriously terrible, and It Conquered the World went on to become something of a classic.
What's this all about? What's everybody running from?
It's the end of everything.
What do you mean?
It, the most fascinating mastermind man can conceive. A monster that can control all sources of the Earth's power. You'll feel the heart-stopping strength of the most fearful monster ever known.
You think you're going to make a slave of the world? I'll see you in hell first.
It conquered the world.
It Conquered the World was followed by Not of This Earth. And then Corman switched gears, made a heist film set in Hawaii called Naked Paradise. While he was down there, he quietly used the locations of Naked Paradise to make another film with his own money called She Gods of Shark Reef. Then he made Attack of the Crab Monsters, in which the creature is finally killed by a special shampoo you have to buy at the drugstore. And on and on and on. Machine Gun Kelly, which gave Charles Bronson his first starring role. The Crybaby Killer, which gave Jack Nicholson his first starring role. And from there, Attack of the Giant Leeches, which gave Archie Leach his... Okay, I won't. In 1960, Corman made a little black comedy with Jack Nicholson and Dick Miller, and the rest of a growing repertoire of actors about a man-eating plant called Little Shop of Horrors that would become a hit Broadway musical in the 1980s. A film version was made of that musical with a big budget and an all-star cast, and it came out in 1986, and it's pretty good. In 1959, Sam Arkoff and James, not to be confused with Jack Nicholson, approached Corman about making two quickie black and white horror films, each for under $100,000. Now Corman, whose career seemed to be based on the theory that just when everybody is convinced you're going to zig, it's time to zag, proposed making one film in color for twice that amount. He suggested adapting Edgar Allan Poe's The Fall of the House of Usher. The simple reason being, it was public domain and everyone knew the title. AIP agreed. The film is excellent, and it started an entire genre of American Gothic horror movies that kept Vincent Price working steadily for the next couple decades. Now, at first, Sam Arkoff and James Nicholson had concerns primarily in that the film had no monster, but Corman argued, quite rightfully, that the house itself was the monster.
For hundreds of years, evil thoughts and evil deeds have been committed within these walls. The house itself is evil now.
Where is she? Where is she? You buried your own sister alive!
I did. But she's dead now.
Oh, okay. The House of Usher is a beautiful movie to look at and proves that Corman, in addition to being a skilled writer and a mad genius of a producer, is also an incredibly talented director. The script was written by Richard Matheson, a creepily talented writer who, in addition to writing some of the most famous Twilight Zone episodes next to Rod Serling, also wrote the book I Am Legend that Stephen King cites as one of his biggest and earliest influences. To give you an idea of Matheson's cred in the writing community, he's spoken of the same way musicians talk about Springsteen. House of Usher's brilliant production design, which you can later see in pretty much every Tim Burton movie ever made, was by frequent Roger Corman collaborator Dean Holler. Les Baxter, a star in his own right, provided the musical score. Although armed with a decent budget and by Corman's standards a lavish 2-week shooting schedule, Corman still pulled some low-budget tricks out of his hat that helped the film look better and more expensive than it had any right to. In the middle of the production, there was a massive fire in the Hollywood Hills. Corman rearranged the shooting schedule, dragged his lead actor and a horse out there, grabbed a couple of fog machines, and suddenly, our hero approaches the dreaded House of Usher through a dead, fog-shrouded forest that looks fantastic and cost relatively nothing. House of Usher was a smash hit. And so Corman, Price, Matheson, Holler, and Baxter reunited for the equally terrific The Pit and the Pendulum.
This was my father's world, Mr. Barnett. The shrieking of mutilated victims became the music of his life. The blood of 1,000 men and women was spilled within these walls. Limbs twisted and broken, flesh burned black.
Starring Vincent Price, truly a master of the macabre. John Carr in a challenging role. Barbara Steele, more blood-chilling than in Black Sunday.
John Kerr clearly did not have approval over the text of that trailer. If that narrator's voice sounds familiar, that's because it's by the great Paul Frees, who is the voice of the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland. American International Pictures Poe series went on. Tales of Terror, The Raven, The Terror, not to be confused with Tales of Terror. The Terror starred a young Jack Nicholson and an old Boris Karloff, for those of you who didn't know they worked together. Then there was the great psychedelic freakout that was The Mask of the Red Death, with a script by another Twilight Zone staffer, the brilliant Charles Beaumont. The Tomb of Ligeia was written by Robert Towne, who would go on to write Chinatown for Roman Polanski. Another 1970s cinema giant was hanging around Corman's offices at that time. Francis Ford Coppola, who was about to make his first movie, Dementia 13, thanks to Roger Corman. Mask of the Red Death was made in 1964, but it is a harbinger of things to come. It is beautiful to look at and has a huge psychedelic swath running right through the middle. That's clearly 3 or 4 years ahead of its time. It stars Vincent Price, Natch, and a young Jane Asher, who was Paul McCartney's girlfriend at the time. If you like the song Here, There, and Everywhere, thank Jane Asher, because he wrote it about her. In the film, Vincent Price delivers what may be the greatest pickup line of all time.
I want to help save your soul so you can join me in the glories of hell.
No, never.
Fortunately for Vincent Price, it was the early 1960s, and men were still going by that old adage that when a woman said no, she really meant yes. So, when she screamed, "No, never," she was really screaming, "Yes, always." Well, try telling that to a judge. As the 50s became the 60s, Corman followed society's trends, and soon mad biker films were a part of his repertoire. In 1965, he made The Wild Angels with Peter Fonda and Nancy Sinatra. Peter Bogdanovich was Corman's assistant on that film. In 1967, Corman made The Trip. Let's go right to the Internet Movie Database for the synopses of The Trip. And I quote, Paul Groves, played by Peter Fonda, is a television commercial director in the midst of a personality crisis. His wife Sally, played by Susan Strasberg, has left him, and he seeks the help of his friend John, played by Bruce Dern, a self-styled guru who's an advocate of LSD. Paul asks John to be the guide on his first trip. John takes Paul to a freakout at his friend Max's. Max is played by Dennis Hopper. Splitting the scene, they score some acid from Max and return to John's split-level pad with an indoor pool. Paul experiences visions of sex, death, strobe lights, flowers, dancing girls, witches, hooded riders, a torture chamber, and a dwarf. Which comes last? Apparently somehow being stranger than a witch. Paul panics, but John tells him to, quote, "Go with it, man." Would you trust John? Oh, Internet Movie Database. But as Joe Dante has said, and as he illustrates in his own script, The Man with Kaleidoscope Eyes, Jack Nicholson warned Corman that if he wanted to do a movie about LSD, he had to man up and take it.
All of us, including me, had taken LSD. I, as a conscientious director, the rest of them just for the experience. And the problem was my trip was wonderful. And if we made the picture on my trip, it would have been propaganda for LSD. But Jack Nicholson, who was a good friend of mine, whose acting career wasn't going very well, was a good writer. So I knew Jack knew LSD, so Jack wrote the script. And we all had these meetings, and everybody was throwing in ideas. And finally I said, "Whose trip is this?" And we finally said it was everybody's trip.
And on Roger Corman's career went. His credits, when printed out, are about the size of a phone book. The Dunwich Horror, Bloody Mama, one of Robert De Niro's first movies, Boxcar Bertha, Caged Heat, Big Bad Mama, Grand Theft Auto, which was Ron Howard's first film as a director, Death Race 2000, Rock and Roll High School, Humanoids from the Deep, and on and on and on. All great fun, all terrific to watch, and all cheap. It has been said, to read the story of Hollywood's heyday as directed in Peter Biskin's excellent book, Easy Riders, Raging Bulls, the A-list talent of that era all have one thing in common. Virtually to a person, they got their start from Roger Corman. Here's a lesson that I learned from Roger Corman, not personally, but by example. And you know what? It works. When you're producing a project with a tight budget, which I do, although I work more in television, and you need to fulfill a position, whether it's a director or a director of photography or a wardrobe person or an art director, don't go and find the best person you can in that field and beg them to take a pay cut to come and work for you so you can brag to everyone about the person you managed to get on your production. Go out and find someone who wants to be that person. Somebody trying very hard to get into that field, but they're just starting out. Cast for talent, trust people, and let them do their jobs. Someone's own dreams of success are their best motivation, and it works every time. Roger Corman, I am happy to report, at 92, is still going strong. Happy Halloween, Roger Corman. Great story if it ends there right. Well, it does not. Maybe you want to ring in Halloween with some prime Roger Corman, like It Conquered the World or House of Usher, or, and this is my recommendation, Mask of the Red Death, if you've not seen it. And if you have seen it, see it again. Or if you want to read Peter Biskin's excellent book about 70s Hollywood, Easy Riders, Raging Bulls, or listen to some Lex Baxter. Visit the library page at danagould.com, where all of these items are featured with easy links. And while you're there, you'll see options to donate to the show or subscribe through PayPal. Every cent goes back into the show, I promise. And please know we appreciate what, if anything, you can do. And if you can't do anything, keep listening. We love having you in our audience. But that's not all. You can also visit our store at comedyfilmnerds.com. Bevilacqua Heating and Air Conditioning t-shirts, they're there. Dana Gould Hour t-shirts, they're there. Signed vinyl copies of Funhouse, Let Me Put My Thoughts in You, and I Know It's Wrong. You know where to get Mr. Funny Man? That vinyl release is in the future. But everything you want is at comedyfilmnerds.com for your pre-apocalypse entertainment storage facility.
Something new is waiting for you at Disneyland. It looks rather innocent. Just a big, old mansion. But there's a twist. You see, this mansion is haunted.
Greetings, curious mortals. I am your ghost host at the Disneyland Haunted Mansion. Why not make final arrangements to join us soon?
Well, why do I always get hooked up with these spook details? Monsters, graves, bodies. Oh, all right.
But when you have someone in your life and you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend and you're all set in that area of your life, you get hit on all the time. When you're single, nothing. And they say it's that sense of confidence. That must be what it is. I don't know. But apparently I'm walking through nightclubs now like Cary Grant. Hello, darling. Good to see you. No, I don't have time for drinks, but it's brunch on Sunday. And what do you mean you won't look good? You will look fabulous because you look fabulous now, and you look fabulous then because you're fabulous, period. End of conversation. I must go. Same bar, same people, but you're single? Suddenly you're coming through a trapdoor in the back like Vincent Price with a big top hat and a cape. I couldn't help noticing you sitting alone at the bar. Why don't you look at me when I'm speaking to you? Look at me, look at my face. They did this to me. They did this to my face. Where are you going? Why won't you dance with me? You're all doing jello shots or I'll kill you. I love Vincent Price so much. He's my favorite everything. And what I love the most about Vincent Price is at one point in his life, he was single. And he was out looking for chicks. And I just can't imagine him at a big Hollywood party walking over to Randolph Scott. You know, I think the one in the blue dress really digs me. Pulling aside, I'm in. The lady's got a hard-on for the Priester. How would you like to be so famous that you were a prisoner of your own voice? Don Knotts. Very likable man, extremely talented man. He can't make obscene phone calls. He might want to. He might be up at 4 a.m. in a dirty bathrobe. Well, I've been looking at you through the bedroom window. Is this Don Knotts? Ah! They know it's me every time. Howl the name of Christ, and they know it's me every goddamn time. It's like caller ID.
All right, teens and swingers, we've reached the part in our show where we're going to let our lead singer, Mr. Mike, pour his love out of his cage to do a number.
Welcome to the Dana Gould Halloween Hour. I'm lying. It will be way more than an hour. But whatever you do, don't touch that dial. That would be a grave mistake. Now it's dark and I'm alone. But I won't be afraid in my doom. In my doom. In my doom. In my doom. Well, Eastern Europe's got the greatest goblins, ghouls, and ghosts. When the workman growls from his bloody jowls, man, I dig his howl the most. Old Drac, he's got such a winning smile, drives a stake right through my chest. And that mummy man up from Egypt land, he's got a rap that's just the best. I wish they all could be Transylvania ghouls. I wish they all could be Transylvania ghouls. yeah, I like ghouls. Ghouls. Oh, I dig ghouls. Yeah, I dig ghouls. Old Transylvania ghouls.
When I was 10 years old, if you had asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I would have said a reporter. Now, at that time, 1974, the two most celebrated reporters in the world were Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein. They had uncovered a little scandal called Watergate for the Washington Post and had recently brought down a sitting U.S. president. But I couldn't give a monkey's asshole for Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein, because in 1974, the most famous reporter in the world as far as I was concerned, and I was not alone in this opinion, was a guy named Carl Kolchak. Now let us, like a good reporter, back up here and put our story into context. When television first reared its black and white head, motion pictures responded to the competition with things like 3D and CinemaScope, big, bold, brassy advances that you could not get at home on a 12-inch black and white screen. TV was TV, and movies were movies, and never the twain shall meet. How naive. This is ignoring the fact that the television schedules were pretty much filled with movies. But in the mid-1960s, TV networks started making their own movies. It was a bold new idea, made-for-TV movies. Or, as they came to be known, made-for-TV movies. Okay. The idea took hold, and by the early 1970s, all of the networks, ABC in particular, had production arms solely dedicated to making movies that never played in theaters. You could only see them on TV. In 1971, ABC purchased a then unpublished novel by a former Las Vegas Sun reporter named Jeff Rice. The book, entitled The Kolchak Papers, told the story of one Carl Kolchak, a down-on-his-luck reporter based in, you guessed it, Las Vegas, who discovers, much to his disbelief, that there seems to be a real live vampire murdering women right there in Sin City.
Did I say it was a vampire?
Well, what does your suggested headline say?
The story makes it clear.
Vampire killer in Las Vegas, ? Do I misread?
The story makes it clear.
Do I misread, or did you use the word vampire?
What makes the movie so great is that no one in the movie responds to the threat of a vampire as if they're in a movie. No one grabs a torch, except for Carl Kolchak, played by the late, great Darren McGavin.
Some screwball who imagines he's a vampire is loose in Las Vegas, and people ought to be told.
If there's a screwball running around loose in Las Vegas, his last name begins with a K.
The script for The Night Stalker was written by the legendary Richard Matheson, who wrote I Am Legend and a ton of classic Twilight Zone episodes, and was once cited by Stephen King as being one of his biggest literary influences. In the movie, Carl Kolchak not only comes up against a vampire, but a police department, mayor's office, and most importantly, his editor, Tony Vincenzo, played by Simon Oakland, who do not want this story out.
This nut thinks he is a vampire. He has killed 4, maybe 5 women. He has drained every drop of blood from every one of them. Now that is news, Vincenzo. News. And we are a news paper. We are supposed to print news, not suppress it.
But even when you think Kolchak's a hero, he's still kind of a shit.
Kolchak, you are an idiot. Worse, you're irresponsible. All these murders mean to you is a byline.
Well, what the hell difference does it matter what it means to me?
The Night Stalker premiered in January of 1972 and, to everyone's surprise, quickly became the highest-rated TV movie in history up to that time. It got a 54 share. More than half of the television sets that were on that night were watching The Night Stalker. It spawned a sequel, The Night Strangler, and in 1974, a short-lived TV series entitled Kolchak the Night Stalker. Along the way, inspiring a slew of children of the 1970s, myself included, to be reporters, at least until we all grew up and decided to become the $6 Million Man. The Night Stalker clocks in at 74 short minutes, and it moves like a freight train. It is so great. It is scary. It is funny. The soundtrack is, let us use the phrase, 70s-tastic. And if you haven't seen it, it is well worth a watch.
Don't look now, baby. But Kolchak's coming back in style.
Halloween, my favorite holiday.
Everybody loves a funny man.
Halloween is when people you don't know come to where you live and take all your shit.
Mr. Funny Man, the new comedy album from Dana Gould on Kill Rock Stars Records and Tapes.
Next up is Thanksgiving, or as Native Americans call it, Halloween.
Available on iTunes and Amazon.
The fact of the matter is, I have met far too many bald men with ponytails to expect this world to make sense.
Yeah. You're funny.
It's the Dana Gould
Rick Baker told me a story about he first did Schlock with John. You know this story. Rick Baker made Schlock for John Landis, and John told him
the movie Schlock.
Yes, the movie Schlock. The movie Schlock, where he played
Schlockthropus.
Schlockthropus, yeah, which I knew about as a 10-year-old. When did Schlock come out? 71?
Something like that.
Yeah. So I was not even 10. And, but I knew it because the poster was the back cover of one of the first issues of Famous Monsters that I bought. So I was well aware of Schlock. John Landis tells Rick Baker, I got this script based on this thing that happened to me in Czechoslovakia. It's called American Werewolf in London. It's going to be, you can't even recount a story with John Landis and do it low key because even like if I was on my deathbed telling a story about John Landis, I would suddenly come to life. He's better. He goes, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. So John goes off and makes Animal House. Other things happen. Rick's working on this stuff. And then you have this other werewolf movie called The Howling. And so you're talking to Rick, and Rick says, yeah, I've been developing some stuff. I'll do this. And then Rick goes, and then John called me up by the blue and said, hey, it all come together. We're making American Werewolf in London. And I have to tell John, I'm making a movie with Joe Dante about werewolves right now. And John screamed at me. I would have never had John scream at me. I can't imagine being able to withstand that.
Well, he couldn't because he left our movie.
Yeah, John has told me the, like, delightful, loving stories that I'm like, are we okay? Are we still friends? Like, what are you talking about? So Rick then took Rob Bottin, I believe.
Well, Rob was already working on it. He was sort of his protege. And so Rick said, well, I can't do your movie now.
Right.
He had done some really interesting tests.
My question is, did John yell at you?
No, John didn't yell at me.
Yeah.
He didn't, I don't remember him saying very much about it. I was really into making the movie for quite a while before John got the money for his pictures. So I don't know what came first, the money or the Howling.
Right.
But one way or another, it was he was going to make his werewolf picture.
Right.
And so we made ours first, and ours was on the shelf for, I don't know, maybe 5 months because they opened it in Europe, which it did very well. But then they didn't want to. I think they wanted to hit Halloween, and they didn't.
Right.
And because we needed extra reshoots or something, and
then Werewolf came out, and
we still came out first, I think.
Oh, really?
I think we came out first.
Okay. Yeah.
But of course, and we did well. But ours was a very cheap movie, and his was not as cheap. It was much more expensive.
And it was coming off of Animal House and the Blues Brothers.
And it was a big studio movie. It was Polygram and
big
Universal.
Big studio movie, and they're both great. Dee Wallace. Is she a kitten at the end of that? What?
Well, we didn't think that she would be a werewolf that would look like the other werewolves because she was so.
She's delightful. She is.
She looks more like a Pekingese.
She looks like a werepom.
We shot that shot the day before the picture was printed.
Really?
Yes.
And speaking of famous monsters, Forrest Ackerman is in the Howling.
Forrest is in the Howling. Yeah. He's in Schlock also.
Yes, he is in Schlock. Yes. He is in Schlock. And now, and then you go to Gremlins. What I find interesting is, so your relationship with Rob Bottin then continues with Gremlins, because by now, like, Rick Baker's the guy.
Right, but Rob goes off to do, Rob is going to do the thing now.
And did the thing, which is...
Right. Which is amazing.
Yeah, which is the trying to come up with the Star Wars of practical effects movies.
Yeah.
Like you can't.
Yeah.
To this day, you can't top it. So did he do the first? Did Bottin do the first Gremlins?
No. Chris Walas did the first Gremlins. Right. Bottin came and did Explorers. He did all the aliens and Explorers.
Okay, and then. But Rick did the second Gremlins.
Rick did the second Gremlins because Chris Walas had then gone off to become a director.
He went off to become a director, and Rob Bottin kind of retired early. Isn't he like a real estate magnate now?
No, I don't think so. I mean, he's a very private person, and it doesn't see a lot of people, but he does see some people because I have friends who see him all the time.
Oh, good.
But he did a lot of commercials, and I think he worked for David Fincher.
Oh, okay.
And
he's clearly a genius.
No, he is. He's incredibly talented, and one of the most talented people in the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at the Thing is one of those movies, the 81 remake, where if somebody was coming from another country and it was just like, what's a horror movie? This is as good as we can do this, and the reason it ages so well is because it's all real. It's all you never get that
disembodied feeling.
Yeah, and especially early CGI where it looks so bad now, and they're overusing it so drastically. And did you have a particular affinity for practical? Because when you made Small Soldiers...
that's all there were.
but by Small Soldiers, you're getting into a lot of...
Well, Small Soldiers was a different issue because Stan Winston was ostensibly going to be doing most of the Small Soldier stuff. He designed the characters, and we had puppets made and all that kind of thing, but they were very hard to manipulate on the stage. Mm-hmm. And so it became apparent because the technology was improving so vastly that between the time we started the movie and the time we actually shot
late 90s or
it was 98, 97.
Right, yeah.
We discovered that the puppets were great if they didn't have to move very far, and they were expressive and they did all the things they were supposed to do. But any kind of activity involving those puppets had to be done with CGI. Right. And so we were saved a tremendous amount of time by simply shooting the plates instead of manipulating the puppets. As we learned with Gremlins, you can't take the time on the stage with all this crew waiting and all the cast to try to finesse this puppet stuff.
Right.
You just can't do it. It's too complicated. I have a
minor version of that on my little tiny cable show.
Yeah. So you do that later. You fix it. You shoot out the actors, do everything you can do, and then if you need to bring them back,
get people off the payroll, get people off the clock.
If you need to bring them back for a day, like we did with Phoebe Cates for the bar scene in Gremlins, then that's fine. But the time it takes to shoot this stuff, it's really tedious, and it takes a long time, and there's a lot of money being spent. You want the makeup guy sitting around going, well, no actors today.
Right.
So that's generally the way you have to do it. And on Small Soldiers, we ended up using much more CGI than we ever planned to use.
Right.
But the movie's better for it because it freed our ability to have the characters move around.
Then I did a terrible film with Henry Rollins, which I'm really embarrassed about. That did not go so well. Those ones that you want to erase out of your IMDb. And then
was he cool or
the cast and everything was great. Henry was wonderful. It was a $200,000 movie that I got a call 4 weeks before shooting.
I remember that. You had to go down to South Carolina or something.
Well, no, that's Don't Kill. That came immediately after. I was on a roll. I was like right after I was Advanced Fighter, I did like 4 movies in a row, and I think that was the problem because you're on a roll.
Yeah.
When you have downtime, you're like, I got to be making a movie.
Right.
And someone called and I thought. was kind of doing them a favor, doing a movie this small and was just going to be a down and dirty. I told him I just want a really bloody, pulpy thing.
Right.
Make a long story short, I'm not going to name names, but the powers that be decided that they would just finish the movie without me.
Right.
And recut it and took out all the gore and everything that was cool
so
about it.
So what you're really saying is this is the magnificent Ambersons of pulpy blood movies.
Yeah, totally. And it's on Netflix and I hate that my name is on it. This is one of those ones of like, this is not my movie. It is, I don't recognize it. It's just not my movie.
Yeah. And it's amazing. People don't understand. An edit makes the movie.
It's crazy how easily it can get fucked up just messing with the timing.
Yeah.
They pulled out all my music and they're like, and put this really bad, like synthy 80s score on it.
Sometimes you get people like, oh, the joke is set up, then punchline.
Right. but it's funny how people don't get that. And it's really the stuff that we take for granted because, like you as a comedian or me as a filmmaker, it's like, we've been doing this a long time. So we get the beats and everybody, and it's a magical thing about film. Everyone thinks they're a director and a critic.
Right.
And it doesn't matter that, okay, these guys have not had that much experience. They know better.
Right.
They can totally re-edit the movie and do it. And I'm so embarrassed by it, but it is what it is. So I apologize. I owe you a drink if you've seen it.
Well, you haven't said the title yet, so we'll leave it at that.
They'll leave it at that.
But Don't Kill It is great. And that came next.
And actually while all that was happening, I was so enraged, and I was in pre-production on Don't Kill It that I was like, I'm not holding back. I all my anger and all my, what I would like to do to people, is going off in this movie. And I'm happy that Don't Kill It just premiered on Netflix, for October.
Oh, really? Oh,
yes.
good. Well, we'll plug it on.
So that's great because, I was a little concerned.
Don't Kill It with Dolph Lundgren. A great horror movie that's also, like Big Ass Spider, really funny.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of my comfort zone. I don't know what it is. It's like I like making people laugh, and it's actually been
well, they're cousins.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's all about a setup and a release, but it's really impeded me, to be honest, because when I'm up for a scary movie, they go, you can't do that. You make goofy, shitty movies. And it's like, look, just because you did this kind of song doesn't mean you can't do that kind of song. Yeah. And so right now is actually
all I've proven is I can do this and something else. It doesn't mean I can't do this.
Right, exactly. And so right now I honestly feel a little bit of pressure that the next thing that I'm trying to get going, is to not be a comedy, to kind of do a more white knuckle, serious, straight film. I think more akin to like The Green Room or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's difficult because I do like to laugh and I do like to hear audience reactions and I like the cheering of the violence and all that stuff. And I love that kind of movie. But at the same time, I also like all sorts of kinds of movies. I just love film in general. So even though the new movie that I'm currently out with right now, even though I developed it and worked with the writers from the bottom up, it was my idea, worked with screenwriters, got the script out. We find people that like the script and then they go like, oh, what else has the director done? And we send them Don't Kill It and Big Ass Spider or whatever, or the Tales of Halloween short. And they're like, we don't see it. Like, oh, really? You don't think I could do the movie that I developed, that you like? You don't think I could do that? That's sort of a fascinating thing. One of the more special projects that I did work on, I forgot to mention this one. This was really great. And one of the droughts between Convent and Grave Dancers, I did a documentary for Showtime called Masters of Horror. And I got to sit down with all my heroes. I mean, pretty much all my heroes. John Carpenter, Wes Craven, Tobe Hooper, a lot of them that are no longer with us. So it really makes it special. George Romero, Dario Argento. That's Dana's a little feral today.
That's my dog, Alfie, behind us, who's having a small seizure. Hi, buddy. Alfie is one of those dogs that if he were a person, he has this look in his eye that you'd only see from a guy in a military jacket sitting on a swing set in the rain.
I like how specific that is. That's awesome. All right, great.
He's just, hey man, what's going on, man? Plus Alfie's getting on in years, and we have a new game that we like to play called Sleeping or Dead.
Alfie seems okay. So
no, he's not that old. That's an old joke.
So we got to meet our heroes, and really, I can't tell you how influential and how impactful it is to hear people you've admired since you were a child talk about the struggles you're going through.
Absolutely.
And so
and they're still going through. One of your idols
another guest on this episode, Joe Dante.
Yeah,
it's like,
absolutely.
Trying to line up a movie and people, it's...
That frightens the hell out of me. John Landis, Joe Dante, the people that were the kings growing up of blockbuster cinema.
They never stop serving the shit sandwich.
Right. Yeah, totally. And to think that
everybody gets the shit sandwich.
To think in their older age that it's like, oh, if only I could land a TV show or a thing, it's like that blows my mind.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's scary.
Why not have a shit sandwich?
Yeah, totally. And that's a comforting feeling. It's like, it never ends. There's not that golden moment. But
and my ex-wife was a big agent, a big executive, and I spent a lot of time just waiting for her to get out of we're going to dinner. I'd just be over there and walk past a meeting and
right.
And you hear people like, oh, what's Al Pacino got you dollar-wise?
Right, sure, like, yeah,
just
totally.
Like, it never ends.
But Wes Craven kind of went on a whole thing about I was called Schlockmeister for most of my career. It's like I'd make these B movies and they love the term Schlockmeister or Goremeister or whatever and just kind of look down. But then he was like, but if you stick around long enough, if you're just around long enough, people suddenly it turns into master of horror or genre vet or
it's true. It's true.
And I kind of feel the same way. As I feel at a different place than I have at any point in my life. Not that, I'm by far from well known or anything like that, but I feel like, I'm at a different place and I credit it solely for not giving up, for just still being in the ring.
There are thousands of people that are listening to this podcast that would trade places with you in a New York second.
Don't do that.
Yeah. But you're friends with Jack Napier.
That's a deep cut. The one thing that I am so blessed to know so many awesome people that I'm like, because at the end of the day is I'm still a fanboy.
Sure.
It's like that little kid from Eagle Rock that went to the comic book store every week. Went home to watch his VHS movies like that. I'm at heart still 100% that guy or kid. So it is wonderful to kind of just even on Tales of Halloween, just the amount of people that we got to be in the movie, Joe Dante and John Landis and and work with directors that I admire and are now close friends like Neil Marshall and stuff like that. It's great, So that's honestly my favorite part of life is two things: going to film festivals and showing the movie to genre audiences around the world. Because one thing that is consistent is that genre films are loved everywhere and rabidly loved.
Yeah, they are, no pun intended, universal.
And that's really great to go to different countries. Estonia, you're going to the film festival in Estonia to see all the hardcore horror fans
that's so funny.
come out. So I love that, and I love getting to meet just amazing artists and wonderful
and
people.
You do what you love. It's awesome.
Yeah, totally. Yes, that part is good.
Exorcist 3 is another one. Nobody sees it. They all go, the second one's so bad.
Exorcist
Why would
3 and Psycho 2,
Yep.
if you haven't seen them, are really worth seeing. The Exorcist 3 and Psycho 2 are great movies.
Yeah. And Blatty was an incredible director. He did 2 movies. He only directed 2 movies. He's the guy who wrote the novel.
Yes, no, I know. Yeah.
And the other one is called The Ninth Configuration. Have you ever?
Oh, I remember. Yeah, I heard that. I remember that.
He's such a. He's obviously a great writer, but an amazing director. Stacy Keach, running a mental home full of soldiers who have lost their minds.
Oh, wow!
And just
that's a great premise.
Beautiful film.
And then there was the Gate.
Ooh,
The Gate was directed by I'm blanking on his name. Who directed The Exorcist?
No, Friedkin? No, you're thinking of...
I think William Friedkin directed The Gate. William Friedkin directed a horror movie about trees.
Right, yeah, it's not The Gate. It's the other... What's the... Oh, God, this is how you know you're wrong. I used to be able to pull that one out of my... I used to be able to... Do you remember when you could just pull those things out of your butt? And it was just... Isn't it the...
Just Google Billy Friedkin horror movie about trees.
Isn't it... It's it's not Sorcerer, obviously. Sorcerer's
no, Sorcerer.
Favorite it's my favorite freaking movie. It's something
and that's a remake of
Wages of Fear.
Wages of Fear, right?
It's something like the Guardian or something like.
And Wages of Fear was a remake of With Six You Get Egg Roll.
That's
the
right,
Rosemary.
Yes. I got it. The Guardian.
I
said The Guardian. It's The Guardian.
The Gate is
a young
close.
couple with a newborn baby don't realize the nanny they hired is a magical nymph who sacrifices infants to an evil tree.
Okay, if you have a gate. What is usually stationed at the gate?
An evil
a guard. It was not a completely wrong answer.
Carrie Lowell. Oh, I remember her. Why is she?
Carrie Lowell, married to Richard Gere, also the Bond girl in License to Kill.
That's right. Oh,
not a great movie.
These weird Proustian memories coming. Miguel Ferrer.
The late great.
The late, great Miguel Ferrer. One of the best things about the new Twin Peaks was
and the old
Miguel
Twin Peaks.
Ferrer.
Oh, look, it's trying to think.
There's a lot of great shit in the old Twin Peaks, and I really don't understand. Let's talk about that for
let's get back to, because I was trying to say that I am in your tribe, but the new Twin Peaks just made
Dan
me
Waters say
so happy.
I liked it a lot.
Oh, no, yeah, he would love that. And he did love it.
Joe,
loved it. Joe loved it. It transcends the lack of narrative. And it told a story.
I loved it until I watched every minute.
Yep.
I have a This Is Dougie's coffee mug. I want to be there. I want to do it, but I really like it when knock, knock, who's there?
Right.
Orange who?
Orange, you glad?
Yeah, I didn't
say Dougie.
Right. I like it when the setup has a payoff that matches the setup.
Okay, take Dougie. That's a perfect, because
we're talking about the new Twin Peaks show season 3. If you haven't seen it, fast forward.
That's right. Skip all this. Dougie to me was, I am not a comedian. I have a few theories. I used to be, we're going to be all over the place here. When Andy Kaufman came out and did Fridays.
Right.
And claimed to be born again.
Right.
I remember watching that, and I remember being really fucking annoyed that he'd cut off the Pretenders. And
oh my God, that's too bad.
I mean, it was an amazing thing to watch, because he got into a fight last season, and he came back.
Jack Burns.
He met this beautiful woman who was Lawrence Welk's singer. I have it on video somewhere. I'm obsessed with it. And he comes out, and then they do the Mark Blankfein? Was that the guy? Blankfield, yes, did the crazy drug addict thing. Yeah. And then Andy comes out, and when the Pretenders were supposed to come out, and he goes, now let's talk about that last skit. That man was in a lot of pain. If he had Jesus in his heart. And you're like, what the fuck? And then months later, he shows up on Letterman, and he was like, I'm going to marry this woman. I'm joining the church. He shows up on Letterman. Dave's like, so Andy, what are you up to? He's like, well, I've got this thing. And you realize, because, I was a kid and I was dumb. I was like, oh my God, it was a bit. Yeah. And I felt like, there are people who watched it at the time who knew, but I felt like the greatest thing in the world was to be me at that moment, because the shoe dropped so far and so hard.
Oh, yeah.
It was an exercise in like psychotically great timing to me. And I feel like Dougie on Twin Peaks was kind of 2 episodes into Dougie. You're going, enough with the fucking Dougie. Mm-hmm. Oh, Jesus. 3rd episode of fucking Dougie. No more fucking Dougie. 9 episodes into it, 10 episodes into it, I'm like, I'm loving Dougie.
Yeah, I learned to love Dougie. I really do think, though,
it was Kaufman-esque.
There's a lot of stuff in there you did not need.
Got a light.
Didn't need it. But no, that episode I liked. I'm just talking about like all those weird conversations with people at the Roadhouse at the end. There's a lot
about Billy.
There's a lot of stuff that I like it nice. And I think Twin Peaks was at its best when ABC was going, what's this? No, we can't put this on. You have to, I really think that notes are good, and working in a box is good. Anybody who has children will tell you boundaries are good.
I tend to agree. I just feel like Lynch is so phenomenal at being David Lynch. He's so in charge of what it is that he does at this point. And I think some of it too, because I should be with you. I should have been sitting there shaking my fist at the screen. And it just made me so happy every week to watch. I felt like the more I let go of trying to understand it, the more it made sense to me.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting place to be without drugs.
Look, here's the thing. I love the story of him going back to the night of Laura Palmer's murder and trying to undo the original crime.
Sure, and he can't.
I loved it so much that without seeing it, I wrote it because that's the season finale of my show this year. It's the same story. John McGinley goes, I'm not spoiling anything. John McGinley goes back in time and tries to save his wife's life. His wife's death was the inciting incident of the whole series. And will it work? Will it not work? Who knows? Tune in. November 1st starts on IFC and your television channels.
But you're looking for narrative.
I love that story. Yes, I am looking for narrative. I am looking for narrative coherence.
I don't know. I was so happy.
And I'm not ashamed of it.
Yeah, no, can't make, we are of the same tribe. I am venturing off the reservation.
I feel like I'll put it this way. I feel like I've been having sexual intercourse with someone and I'm reaching a point of, let's use the phrase, frantic enjoyment. And the other individual goes, hang on, wait a minute. Gets out of bed and goes, let's put a basketball hoop in the backyard. Well, I got to go to work. And you're there, as they say, high and dry.
again, I can't really finally defend. I can't defend it on the terms you're trying to.
A State of Frantic Enjoyment is the name of my autobiography.
I don't know why the phrase Mazo kept running through my head. That you probably don't know unless you have did you ever write porn?
Did I ever what?
Write porn?
No, I didn't. I had
a brief foray into writing softcore porn in the early 90s.
You buried the lead, Josh.
But here's the great thing. You know why writing
40 minutes into the interview,
writing porn is so much better than writing feature films, because here's the thing that drives me crazy. You're writing a movie and there's going to be a car chase.
And you have to write the chase.
Car chase is going to be 5 minutes long, or a fight. 5 minutes long. You got to write the stupid, and it's like, you know what's going to happen. I mean, I'm a fine writer. If there's a narrative point that needs to be made, I mean, you do, you're going to make it. Right, but why can't you just go, fight goes here, and the important thing is that the hero's eyeball gets knocked out of its socket or something.
Right.
Because they're going to bring in a great stunt guy who's going to coordinate it, or a woman. And
you still have to write it, and then they throw it.
You still have to write it. But in softcore porn, you would write sex goes here, and then you would end it by going, they maso, M-A-S-O, which stood for mutual and satisfying orgasm.
By the way, fun fact.
Yes.
Doesn't exist.
Well, it did in my movie.
My take on the female orgasm is the same as my take on Bigfoot. Believe it when I see one.
Oh, God, what was I was just listening to something where they were reading arch conservatives writing about whether or not liberal women or conservative women were better at sex. And it was absolutely hilarious because they were saying, liberal women just don't enjoy sex. They don't seem to climax. They don't seem and you're going, you might be telling us more about yourself there. So.
Yeah.
They really don't satisfy. They don't enjoy a 2-inch long penis.
Oh, yeah,
I semi-soft.
I gave her all 2. So Gremlins comes out, massive hit.
Puts me on the map.
Put you on the map. But for all of your success, has there ever been a time when a studio just came and said, what do you want to do? Like, you still have to...
that briefly, I would say right after Gremlins, I had that period where they would say, you want to do Batman? How about Batman? We have Batman here. Want to do it? And I was attached to Batman for a while until I realized that I didn't believe in Batman. I only believed in the Joker, and I was making the movie for the wrong reasons. I wanted to make a Joker movie. I didn't want to make a Batman movie.
I did not know that even a little bit.
Yeah, so that's not the same one that Tim Burton made. This was a script by Tom Mankiewicz, and it was I think Ivan Reitman had been going to do it at one point.
Mm-hmm.
But I just thought
was it?
It was more Bondian. It wasn't quite as dark as
that was before. I'm assuming this was mid 80s.
It was 84.
Yeah, it was 84 because the Batman didn't become the modern conception of Batman until 1988 when Frank Miller made.
Right. This was
86. I believe
this was pre that. This was still the comic book Batman.
Right. It was still Adam West.
No, not as. It was more serious than that. But
we don't diss Adam West.
No, it's a different approach. But no, this was like a big. It's like what studios do when they try to make stuff like The Shadow. I mean, it's big, it's expensive, it's got good cast in it, but it just lays there. It's just they don't have. They don't have the oomph to be able to get behind it.
But that is interesting because. That would have been a huge hit, but it was just like, I don't feel...
Maybe it would have been a hit, maybe not. But I mean, I had John Lithgow. I was going to play the Joker. I thought it was great casting.
Mm-hmm.
But
pretty good one for Batman.
But ultimately, I don't remember if we got that far. But I just
Fred Brandy from the Love
somebody who really loves this material should be doing it. It was the same thing with the Flintstones. They came to me on the Flintstones, and I said I'm very flattered, but I never liked the Flintstones. I always thought it was a cheap ripoff of the Honeymooners, But there are people out there who love this stuff, and you should get a guy who has Flintstone soap in his bathroom. You should find a guy who loves this stuff, and apparently they did, and they made a movie, and they were happy. Yeah. But I wouldn't have made a very good movie out of it.
No, well, the Flintstones is also one of those things. And this is one of those things. Thank God they're finally talking about it. But some cartoons should just be cartoons. And there's a reason it's a cartoon. It's like, wouldn't that lamp make a great piano? No, it's a lamp. Just leave it alone. It's a lamp.
Heckle and Jekyll, the movie.
Yeah, it should. And then we'll do a live action version of we'll do an animated version of the live action movie. No.
We remember they tried that with the Roadrunner and the Coyote. They tried to make a picture called Villain with Schwarzenegger and I think maybe Kirk Douglas. And it was
it was a Western.
And it was a Western. And it was like, what is this?
That's right. That is right. They all go to all those guys. Stallone. They all try their hand at comedy after a while. They go, I can be funny.
Well,
I can be funny.
Yeah, I almost did a picture called "Stop or My Mom Will Shoot" with.
And John ended up making that, didn't he?
No, it wasn't John.
That was made with Sylvester.
It was
Stallone.
made, and Sylvester was in it, but I can't remember.
John made one of those Stallone comedies.
Carrie Fisher was rewriting it with me, and we both got to a point where we realized, we can't make this work.
Yeah. No, Oscar. Oscar.
Yeah, I got cut out of that.
But I believe John directed Oscar.
John directed Oscar.
John directed Oscar. So one of the projects that you have now, I remember watching Ed Wood thinking, oh my God, they made a movie just for me. This is the craziest thing I've ever seen. I'm watching a major studio movie about Ed Wood.
And I think from their point of view, it was just a movie for you.
I so passionately love that movie. And
it's a great movie. It's one of the great movies about filmmaking.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. And an underrated movie about, it's an underrated movie about filmmaking? Bowfinger.
Bowfinger is a very funny movie.
Bowfinger is a really underrated movie. But I remember talking to one of the Disney execs, like literally a dad at our school or something, and they worked at Touchstone, and I said, oh my God, Ed Wood, what a brilliant, brilliant goddamn movie. He goes, I didn't make any money, I wasn't on that one. I mean, literally, it was like, we're having two totally different conversations here.
You aren't going to be able to have that conversation with that guy.
Yeah, no, it's like, it really disappointed me. But the Man with Kaleidoscope Eyes is basically the story of Roger Corman's film, The Trip.
Roger making The Trip, yes.
Right. Give the pencil sketch of that.
Well, this is a script that the editor of the late lamented Video Watchdog,
yes,
Tim Lucas.
I didn't know that was late lamented.
Yes, it's stopped printing eventually a couple of issues ago, and Charlie Largent, who worked with me on Charlie Some Hell, is a good artist. They wrote this script on spec on their own, and it was about Roger and where he was in his life and how the making of the movie and taking LSD changed him or not. It's a funny, well observed movie with lots of cameos by people like Jack Nicholson and Bruce Dern and Dennis Hopper, people who were involved in the making of the movie. And
he took LSD to make
Jack Nicholson was writing the script and he said to Roger, you can't just make a movie about LSD. You've got to take LSD. Otherwise, you're going to make a piece of junk like they're making it over at Columbia with Sam Katzman. The Love-Ins and all that. Which was on TV last night.
Psych Out. Psych Out is about...
Psych Out is Richard Rush.
Right. I was thinking of... What is the movie where Roddy McDowell plays, for lack of a better term, Phil Spector?
Oh, Angel, Angel, Down We Go.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
No, The Cool Ones.
That's another. He plays Phil Spector in both movies.
He plays the cool ones.
The aptly named cool ones.
Yeah.
But
they couldn't sell the uncool ones.
Anyway, the idea was that we would try to make this picture the way Roger would make it, which is not spending a lot of money, but it's a period movie. It's now set in 1967. There's not a lot of 1967 stuff outside when you walk down the street.
Right.
A lot of it takes place on the Sunset Strip, which is unrecognizable now.
Yeah.
And so obviously a certain amount of capital has to be invested in creating that world.
Right.
But over a period of nearly 10 years, we came really close to making it once. And it fell apart. And then we found another guy who was willing to do it, and that one fell apart. But now we have a company that's interested and realistic about it. And they decided to stage a reading with actors here in Hollywood at the Vista Theater. And we invited a bunch of people and we did a stage reading, which has become fairly common now.
Yeah, but it was great. And Bill Hader
played Roger, and it was
fantastic.
And it went over really well. And Roger was there, and Peter Bogdanovich was there. All people who are actually
there,
characters in the show, were actually there, and they all had a good time. And so the encouraging response obviously led these guys to feel, okay, we can make this picture, but we have to figure out under what budget range we're going to do it. It depends on how big a star can we get. Bill Hader is booked up from now till the end of time.
I would think he would make the time.
Well, he's a busy guy.
Yeah.
And he told me he was very flattered to be asked to do it.
Yeah. He's a monster. He's a monster kid. I took Bill Hader to Bob Burns' house, and he was moved.
It's orgasm time.
Yeah. He was like, I can't believe I'm here holding King Kong. Yeah.
So, the prognosis is we're working on a budget and trying to find a way to do it. We may want to use some offbeat techniques to create the world because we're not going to be able to build it.
Yeah. But I also think it is in the way that, I know that Tim Burton fired the first art director on Ed Wood because he was making a Tim Burton movie. And he had to go, we're making an Ed Wood movie. And these sets should be flat and there should be nothing in this kitchen.
Yeah.
Even though it's their real kitchen, there should, it was quite brilliant. It seems that if this movie has a Roger Corman approach and that you just live in that world as you talk about that world, that to me feels really organic and that.
Well, I agree because at many times during the budgeting process, we've looked at each other and we've said it's not right to spend a lot of money making a movie about Roger Corman.
Yeah,
because it's the zeitgeist does not support it.
So it's Halloween season. What is a horror movie that everybody knows that you would recommend? And what's like a horror movie that not a lot of people know that you say, like, this is the movie you're really going to see?
Funny enough, I actually really enjoy watching The Exorcist on Halloween. I remember going to a midnight movie one Halloween and seeing The Exorcist, and that really worked. I don't know why, because it doesn't feel Halloween-y, but just, but it's dreadful and scary.
Yeah.
And just, I don't know, that works. I'm going to make a Netflix recommendation for a quiet night. I don't know if it's your Halloween movie, but there's a movie on Netflix right now called A Dark Song that is just a very slow burn, creepy type film about a girl who hires I don't even know what you call him, some sort of sorcerer who to do a revenge spell. And it's just two people in a house, but it's creepy and atmospheric and very effective. And I don't think a lot of people know about it. So I want to sing its
Dark
praises.
Song? Is it American?
A Dark Song.
Is it...
It's British, I believe.
British?
Yes, yeah. But I saw it at Fantastic Fest, which, and that's the wonderful thing living in LA and being in this world is there are so many great film festivals locally, and Fantastic Fest, which I mentioned, is in Austin. You get these just such finely curated films that you make all these great discoveries. I've been all week here in Los Angeles. We just are finishing up Beyond Fest, which had a great intro movie, Brawl in Cell Block 99 with Vince Vaughn. I'd never heard of the movie. Awesome film, though. Really cool. Like Vince Vaughn in a way you've never seen him before, just being a brawler, kicking ass.
Big movie coming out, or?
No, it's a small film. There's a movie that Kurt Russell did called Bone Tomahawk.
I know about Bone Tomahawk.
Yeah, so it's the same director as that. He's got a really interesting path thus far where he makes these kind of independent films with these big stars.
Right.
Because I still recognize that, this is a small independent film. It just has kind of cool people in it.
It's also too juicy of a role to turn down. For
I guess so. Yeah, and then one of those things that I know it wouldn't have been made if you didn't have someone like this backing it, so, but it's Don Johnson and Vince Vaughn. There's a couple other cool folks, Udo Kier, Jennifer Carpenter.
I had both of yours wrong. I thought your known movie would be Evil Dead 2.
Oh, okay.
And I thought your little known movie would be Train to Busan. For people unfamiliar with Train to Busan, tell them about Train to Busan.
Train to Busan is a great film, South Korean film. It's actually a sequel, which is actually really interesting. The original is an animated film, which I think I can't think of any other film like that ever. So the director, this is his first live action film. It's just a real tense, fun movie that takes place on a train during a zombie apocalypse that will. I don't want to speak for everyone, but will warm your heart. I will say I got choked up at the end, which is just, that's kind of an accomplishment. I feel I have no heart most of the time.
Right, sure.
So if you could actually kind of get me to choke up during a horror film, that's amazing. There's such wonderful films all over the world that are getting made. And that's why I love things like Fantastic Fest or Beyond Fest or, that really put a Scream Fest in LA as well, that put a spotlight on these, especially just from around the world.
Two of the best movies I've seen this year were foreign movies. I saw them on planes.
I found as I get older, that's actually a great time to see movies.
Yeah.
Because it's I'm sure running being a showrunner and your stand-up career and all the stuff you do, it's like I kind of think that there's a time you have 6 to 8 hours or whatever it is of time to just watch a movie. What's surprising is that a good movie really will make the flight that much more tolerable. If a movie works, you are sucked in there and it doesn't matter.
My girlfriend has never seen Ed Wood, and we've been trying to get time to see Ed Wood. By the time you get down in front of the TV with kids and life and everything, is it over 20 minutes? Yeah.
Right.
I don't know if I can
totally.
do it.
Yeah. One of the other things I love about festivals like this, it's just nice to see those movies in its proper format.
Totally.
One of the great things about Beyond Fest is that they show a lot of older films with legends that come to see the movie. So we just saw Suspiria 4K with Dario Argento present, and I was sad to miss this. Arnold Schwarzenegger was there for Predator, and I heard that was great. Last year, I got to watch Big Trouble in Little China with Kurt Russell
Amazing.
And it's magic. I mean, there's a reason these people are icons.
He's a cool dude.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the movie is phenomenal, and you're seeing this beautiful DCP of it because everyone there cares so much about the quality and the presentation of cinema. And then you realize, yes, this is why we all love Kurt Russell. This is why, we've grown up, and he is just naturally charming. He's funny, and it was electric. And I'm sure I hear the Schwarzenegger one was similar. It's just, it's just magical.
I did Conan with Schwarzenegger, and I sat next to Kurt Russell at a dinner.
Okay.
A big showbiz dinner. And I told him, I said, like, I'm a stand-up comedian. And I do this bit about how fucked up my dog is. And at the end of the bit, I go, somebody get McCready. Just to see who will get the reference.
Right.
And I said, and inevitably, 2 guys over 40 laugh. And he thought that was the greatest thing in the world. Like, he totally got it. Totally just thought it was hilarious. And then I recommended, it was so funny. I said, I just read a book that you should read and produce it and be the star in it. And it was 11/22/63. I told him the print, and he said, "Nah, I don't like time travel."
Oh, that's funny.
It was just this rant. Nah, I don't like time travel.
I remember Bruce Campbell telling a story that he was at some convention or whatever, and he sees Kurt Russell, and Kurt Russell goes up to him and goes, "Say work shed, say work shed," which is a famous Evil Dead 2 line because it's very 80-yard. Anyway, but the fact that like, goddamn. One of my other good friends, James Wan, worked with him in Fast and the Furious 7. James, I admire so much as being such an accomplished filmmaker and such an incredible human being. And there are many things I can envy, but I don't care about the money or the success. The moment I truly envied him was when he's like, "Yeah, I've been hanging out with Kurt Russell. He's been doing all these Big Trouble Little China quotes. He's just been in Jack Burton mode all day,
That's
like
fantastic.
doing the lines." And I'm like, I'm really envious right now.
That's when you really feel like, we had Jeffrey Combs on Stand Against Evil this season.
Oh, wow.
And I got to spend a week with him. And, you get to the point where he's just Jeff.
Right.
And you're hanging out, talking about sandwiches.
Yeah, totally.
And he's the greatest guy on earth. And then after a while, and sometimes it's like, you're fucking Jeffrey Combs. That's insane.
Yeah, totally.
And otherwise, it's just kind of like, "Hey, Jeff, what are you doing?"
No, absolutely.
We wrapped early. You want to get a drink?
Well, that's the thing. And then, so like Kurt Russell or even Schwarzenegger is like, there's a reason these people are stars. They're not there accidentally, some people like argue that, like, I don't think there's such a thing as having it.
It's true.
And
bullshit.
I'm like, no, bullshit. There's a reason they're called stars. Some people shine brighter than others.
I will tell you, when Stand Against Evil got bought by IFC, I said, and I'll play the lead in makeup. Nobody can do my dad better than me.
Right.
And IFC said, we're going to pick it up, but you're not going to be the lead.
Right.
And I could hear the 25-year-old me going, "No fucking way."
Right.
And I could hear out of my adult body, "You got it." And they were 100% right. I was 100% wrong. One, it would have killed me.
I'm sure you would have done great, but obviously
running a show,
obviously McGinley
running a
is
show
great.
and being a lead in a show in 2 pounds of makeup.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. John McGinley's a star.
Yeah.
I am not a star. I am a competent actor. I wouldn't say I'm not an actor. I'm a writer that does some acting.
Right.
I'm utterly competent. I'm not a star. John McGinley is. Janet Varney is.
I mean, he is great in the show.
Yeah, the camera's on them and you watch them.
Right.
And it was just one of those things where, like, I'm so glad I am at a point in my life where I didn't make the stupid decision.
Right.
Because I remember when I was.
I mean, I can't even imagine what it's like to show run. I mean, that's something that seems so daunting to me.
The quick thing is you're really careful about hiring the right people.
Yes.
And then
I'm sure delegation is key.
Put your dick away and let people do their goddamn job.
Right.
And be open about I'll take an idea from anybody if it's good.
Right.
And I've had great success at that.
You write 10 episodes, about 8 episodes, about 26 pages each or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I write 3 of them, and then I break the stories on the other 5, and they're given to other writers.
Okay.
And then, then I take them and I pee all over every one of them. The set decorator, the wardrobe, costume, they all come with ideas. What if we did this? Like 9 times out of 10, like, that's a much better idea than I had. Go do that.
Right.
Everybody wins.
Do you sleep? I don't.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's because I just don't do it. Like I get directing, no problem. I understand that, the ins and out of that but like writing, and because it's such a creative thing, and the blank page is such an enemy to me.
I have a blank page thing that I'm putting off today that I have to do, and kids.
Yeah, and kids.
I have 3,
yes,
I
totally.
have 3, and my girlfriend has 3, so it's like,
wow, it's a whole Brady Bunch
story.
thing. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. If I'm super busy, I sleep. If I have nothing to do, I don't sleep, and I'd rather sleep, so I stay super busy. I'll take Twin Peaks if you say ahead of time. You're not going to learn that this mystery will be a mystery.
But wait, did you actually go into Twin Peaks season 3 thinking that you would get concrete answers to your questions?
Did. Yeah, I really could because of Mark Frost.
Oh, well, they locked him. I heard they locked him out of the editing room.
I'm sure they did.
I had a friend who claims to be the biggest David Lynch fan in the world, and he was just furious because he felt like the entire thing had been leading up to a confrontation between Cooper and Evil Cooper.
Yeah.
And I thought, but that's an Avengers movie. But didn't you know when he introduced a guy with a green hand that could punch through anything that guy was going to knock evil into another dimension, and you were going to end up in a hotel room with Laura Dern and Kyle MacLachlan?
Yeah, I felt that telling a satisfying story would have allowed him to do all the things that he does.
Ah, yes.
But it would have been satisfying, and that is possibly a better story, because what he does, I literally think that he has dream imagery and he recreates dream imagery. I also believe that he has the every frame is a painting theory. Both of them legitimate, both of them fine. But I like the idea of a satisfying story. I don't think there's anything wrong with a satisfying story. And I think it's a cop-out to go, it's a bigger mystery than it was before. Mysteries are beautiful. No, it's a jack-off.
Again, you need to find, I should get Dan to come in here because I can't argue any of that. It just, it was like a nice warm shower to me.
No, it's like Captain Beefheart. If you love Captain Beefheart.
Yeah.
Then you love Captain Beefheart.
But that voice, that crazy voice, and that terrible thing.
I like Captain Beefheart, but I can't take somebody that just went to a whatever show, Ariana Grande show, and go, you really have to hear the song called Ice Cream for Crows.
Exactly.
No, it's about a guy that makes ice cream for a crow.
It's funny because he is, every now and then I decide I'm going to teach myself someone. And Beefheart's on my list. He's one of those. Am I insane? Am I the only? I feel like sometimes I'm the only person who does that. I understand that because I don't like Captain Beefheart, that doesn't make him terrible.
I agree with you like that. I can't get in. I've said this before. I can't get into Bruce Springsteen.
Oh no, we talked about this. And that's a mark of bad character.
Didn't go over with Joe well, who's from New Jersey.
Oh, no, I'm the Psychotic Springsteen fan.
Yeah, but he's also from Jersey, and he's from like 5 minutes from where my.
But there's this thing where people go, Dylan, that voice, he's terrible. You're like, no, you don't like him. There's something. Right. But by the way, there are people who can't sing who are terrible. But there's people at a certain point you listen to the cosmos, and Captain Beefheart is obviously great. I don't get it.
Yeah, I love Bob Dylan.
Yeah,
I love Tom Waits.
Yeah.
They're an acquired taste.
They are, but sometimes I remember seeing Tom Waits on SNL. Where he did fought out of the window,
right? Yeah.
And it was just like lightning hit me. I was like, "You can do that." Mm-hmm. We loved him instantly. Dylan, I couldn't stand for years, and then one day I just heard it. So I'm about to dive. I'm taking a deep dive into Captain Beefheart to see if I can make myself.
See if you can pull it off.
Yeah,
I think him and Waits were pretty tight.
Yeah, for sure. I get Tom Waits is like the sort of happy poppy boy band version of Captain Beefheart.
He had an album that came out at the height of the Iraq War in like 2004 or 5 or something.
Beefheart?
Waits.
Oh.
I think it's called Real Gone.
Real Gone.
Real Gone.
Yeah.
And there's a song on it called Hoist That Rag.
Hoist That Rag.
And it was like,
Tom Waits is going to rip apart pop culture with his first political song.
What?
An anti-war dirge. Oh God, I gotta buy this. Is there Tom Waits taking
great
on?
Song.
But what's it? No, I don't. I can't hear a fucking thing
love
you're
that
saying.
song.
Yeah,
Love
but
that
it's like I don't walk away with any message.
Yeah.
outside,
Well, what
like,
somebody there was an article.
a tuna can in a freezer.
Yes.
Something's going on.
There was an article going around about a week ago that the Jon Snow's big speech on the season finale of
Game
War
of
of the
Thrones.
Rings or whatever it's called
War of the Rings.
was actually a thinly veiled attack on Donald Trump. And I remember just thinking, well, they sure showed him.
Yeah. Well, that was like, I remember because he was out there whoring his Broadway show, Michael Moore going, we're going to take Trump down with satire. No, you're not. And they'll go in the long list of times that's never been done. No, there's one thing that will take down Donald Trump. Donald Trump. He's the only guy that can do it.
Maybe.
The only guy that could take down King Lear was King Lear. The only guy that could take down Richard Nixon was Richard Nixon.
So porn.
Who'd you write for?
It was this company that did.
This is like what, 70s, 80s?
No, 90s, straight to video stuff. They fed things into like Cinemax. But I had done a couple things for them, some rewrites, and I still remember them coming to me going, we want to do a movie that's set. We just need it's got to be set in one location, and people have to, like, that's an excuse for people not to be wearing too many clothes. And I said, how about a beach house? And they went, oh my fucking God, that's brilliant. And I wrote a movie called Beach House that for some reason they never made. I thought maybe the script wasn't good enough.
Have you ever gone to a set? Did you go to the set?
An actual porn set?
Yeah.
I have not. No. But these are softcore. I must.
Yeah. I will say this, and this has been.
I know about sniffers.
So what's a sniffer?
A sniffer is just someone who likes to hang out on porn sets and watch.
Do they allow them?
Well, if you're friends of somebody or other, it's not.
I was in San Francisco a couple years ago, and there's a giant National Guard armory in the Mission District of San Francisco that is a giant building that occupies a city block. And for years, and I think it's no longer there, but it was operated by this company called kink.com that ran like 70 billion websites out of it. And that I was fascinated by the infrastructure. It is a National Guard armory. There's like horse stables and a munitions dump and just the infrastructure of this place. So I was on stage one night performing and I was talking about it. I think, it looked like the embassy to jack off a stand or something like that. So, hilarious joke. And a woman came up to me after the show and gave me a card and said, I work for kink.com if you ever want to take a tour. And I went, I want to take a tour tomorrow.
Exactly, yeah.
I said, great, well, meet me there. So I met her there and took me around. And it is fascinating. It's like touring Dracula's castle. I mean, it's just a huge building. And then.
And are they just in production in all the different rooms? Is it?
In some rooms, but the one was I go downstairs and the thing I remember is open boxes of pizza. So, somebody's shooting something and people milling about. And then you look and have you ever gone to the gym and everybody's working out and then somebody's working with a trainer?
Right.
It was like that. Only the trainer was fucking the person. But everybody was just doing their thing and eating pizza. And it was, I've said this, the least sexual thing imaginable.
Yeah.
There's nothing erotic about it at all. It's just
vaguely depressing.
Yeah, vaguely. And try to imagine 2 butterball turkeys in a dryer with a glass door. So how long did you work in that
couple of years? I mean, and in between other stuff. Barely. Yeah.
Well, Ed Wood wrote erotic novels.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But it was crap and you could bang it out really quickly and then
no pun intended.
Yay.
So obscure horror movies, people should be aware. Oh God,
obscure. We're back to because Bad Boy Bubby isn't really
Bad Boy Bubby.
It's not really a horror film, but it's just a great. I didn't realize you were doing horror.
It's horrifying.
When we had Dana on Trailers from Hell, we gave him notice and he got to prepare so he could sound clever.
Well, this is conversational.
I like that movie with the dude who does the thing.
Yeah.
Here's one I wouldn't recommend. I'm not even sure it's a horror film either, but Serbian movie. That's pretty horrifying. Do you know Serbian movie?
Is that the title of it?
That's it. Yes. It's called a Serbian, or is it a Serbian film? And it's a really disturbing mixture of hardcore violence and sex.
No, and I'll tell you, it's interesting you say that. No, I'm going somewhere with that. We have this thing in LA called Monster Palooza.
Yes.
And every 3 or 4 months, people go to, and great thing about Monsterpalooza is I always see my friends that I don't get to see on a regular basis. We always end up. Mike Mendez among them, Ken Daly, all my friends. But there's the cool horror stuff that I like.
Yeah.
And then there's corpse porn.
Oh, yeah. Jörg Buttgereit.
But it's just guts, you know, and it's just, there's a lot of guts.
Yes.
And again, like, just doesn't do a goddamn
Well, there's the other thing with that tribe too is you're asking me what, my favorite obscure horror films. Those guys, they don't care about the movie. They want to know what your favorite kill is.
Yeah. I have no interest in that at all. And not even, and even like with slasher films, like even the Friday the 13th stuff, never interested me. I loved Evil Dead 2. I like it when there's a supernatural element to it. I don't like it when it's just a douchebag killing people.
Yeah. I mean, we're at Halloween.
With the exception of Halloween.
Exactly.
The exception of Halloween.
I'm trying to, I wish you had given me
the exception that proves the rule.
There's a wonderful low budget movie.
Ghost of Mr. Chicken.
Exactly. Two guys in the zombie apocalypse and shit. I cannot remember the name of it, and I will have to send it to you when I get home. No. Shaun of the Dead's one of them. This is one that nobody knows that I stumbled across one night late on Netflix. And
what's the Korean zombie apocalypse movie on a train?
Oh yeah, Train to Busan.
Train to Busan.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. See, I live with these people who are, to them, that's gone to the wind. I'm trying to go over this. Yeah, Train to Busan is wonderful.
Yeah,
you want to just
come up and meet us. Come up and
do Godzilla movies count?
Shin Godzilla is
Shin Godzilla. Okay, fine.
Shin Godzilla is unbelievable.
It is everything that's wrong with the American movie system. That we don't make that movie. It's a big budget Godzilla film for adults.
Yes, it's now available on iTunes DVD. It is a satire of the botched Japanese government's response to the Fukushima nuclear power plant disaster, using Godzilla as a stalking horse for the Fukushima power plant. And it's like Dr. Strangelove meets Godzilla. I cannot recommend it.
It's
highly
1/3 Godzilla, 2/3 rooms full of people in suits arguing about policy.
Yeah. And it's great. But it's all entertaining.
It's ridiculously entertaining.
Yeah. He cannot go on land. He's on land.
I watched with a bunch of writer friends, and
Shin Godzilla was and I watched it on a plane coming back from Atlanta, and I was so happy.
Yeah.
I was so happy.
Yeah. How do you make that movie in America these days?
I don't think you do. Or you got to get it funded.
It's so sad because it takes money because Godzilla is not cheap.
Right. The effects were fine. I'm sure I think it was a lot of motion capture. They didn't do it
some of it is, the thing I love about the Japanese Godzilla movies today is it's still a guy in a suit, but he's CG'd. So it looks like a giant guy in a suit.
Yeah, exactly. It's really brilliant. And there's different phases of Godzilla that are great.
Yep.
And what was the guy that just came out on Netflix, movie about a giant pig?
Bong Ocha. Yeah, I have not seen it yet.
Yeah.
Have not seen it.
Ocha will make you bawl. You'll bawl your eyes out.
My wife's a vegetarian because she realized that she's so in love with her dog she can't eat animals anymore. She will die if she watches that movie.
I'm not a vegetarian. I would not eat Ocha. The girl in Ocha looks just like my oldest daughter, and in all of what she endures in that movie, I bawled my eyes out watching that movie.
Oh God, now I really can't.
Like a little sissy boy.
Yeah.
Ocha's fantastic. And the movie he made before that with the train.
Oh, yeah, Snowpiercer.
Snowpiercer. Really enjoyed Snowpiercer.
Which I passed on.
Passed on directing?
No, not directing. I somehow I became, I still have a connection with these folks who get the rights to a lot of Korean films. It's a Korean company, and I've had a couple of things that have almost happened. The saddest was I almost got to do a project with Park Chan-wook, who directed Old Boy.
Yeah, sure, yeah. Also about a guy living in a room without his mom.
It's a thing with me. I like those contained. I still remember we were sitting in a meeting because he spoke very little English. His translator going back and forth, this packed room, and the only thing Park Chan-wook said at the meeting in English was, "I cannot wait to go home and tell my friends I am working with the writer of A History of Violence." And I just,
that's crazy. Yeah.
And then it fell apart. But they came to me with Snowpiercer, which is this graphic novel, and it was one of those things. Let's talk great lines from movies. A man's got to know his limitations.
Right.
It's like I could not get past, because it's a metaphor. It's a train stuck in going around the world in this frozen future, and I couldn't get past the kind of what you're talking about with Twin Peaks. That's usually me. It's like there was just things that did not make sense on a narrative level that I could not get myself past. the director's brilliant, and I knew it would be. And it was just like one of those things where like, I'm not your guy. And I thought they did a phenomenal job with that film because it's ridiculous, and yet it just works all the way through, and you're just rooted in the
Yeah. And it really brilliant. There is footage of the Sunset Strip.
Oh no, there is. Of course there is. And
just use it.
There's a lot of stock footage. And
get Jack Webb out of there.
Did you see?
What was the movie about? There's the whole thing about Pandora's Box. There's scads of footage about the riots.
Right. Oh no, there is. Yeah. But did you see the Rules Don't Apply? The Warren Beatty movie they just did.
No, the Howard Hughes thing.
Yeah, it's got really, really good approximations of an earlier era than this, but Hollywood Boulevard in the early 50s. I mean, it's not stock footage. I mean, it's something that they made.
Oh God,
and it's really cool. The best version of that I think that I've ever seen was in The Changeling, the Clint Eastwood movie.
Yes.
Which I think no expense was spared, but I mean, it was really an amazing approximation.
I believe they shot a lot of that either in South Pasadena or in San Dimas. You can get
there are places that still look kind of like the 50s.
I did. I was on Frank Darabont's show Mob City, which was set in 47 in Los Angeles. And there's a little neighborhood right tucked into the back of Hancock Park. It's separated from Hancock Park, but it's off Wilshire that I'd never heard of, that I'd lived there for years. You go up the street and it is like a 3-block time warp. It's craftsman houses and it's like, if I drove you there now, you would go like,
I know. It's great. It's great that there are still some places like that because everywhere you drive around town, you see nothing but construction.
Yeah.
And you see big empty holes and you rack your brain, as you always do in Los Angeles, and you say, what used to be there?
Yes.
I can't remember.
Or I'm from, I don't understand houses that are bigger than they need to be. And
all craftsman houses were, the big ones on down by Wilshire the street escapes me, but it's an old neighborhood where there's a lot of big houses in what used to be probably a pretty Tony neighborhood.
Right.
And now the houses are too big for the people who live there.
Right.
And the families die off.
But I don't know with these people that build these new houses that are literally
they go right to the edge of the property.
Yeah.
And they use up every square foot of the property.
Right. And it's literally like they're building an embassy, and you just don't need it. I have a little mid-century house that's all I need.
No, my house was built in the late 20s, early 30s by Paramount. The whole neighborhood in Hancock Park that I'm in was built by Paramount to house the art directors and people who work there. It's a lovely.
Keep them close.
It's a lovely neighborhood, but the problem is that all the rooms are too small, and everybody has to remodel.
Right.
Because it's just people were smaller then.
I used to live on Iris Drive, up behind the Hollywood Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And purportedly, Disney built these little bungalows for animators up there, down Village. You realize this was a company town. This was a town.
There was no other business.
The town was there to support the film industry, not the other way around.
Well, that's changed.
Yeah. But it wasn't. Initially, it was not the other way around. Last question. What is it like to hang out with the Ramones?
The Ramones are
not the first choice to be in the movie.
No, first Roger wanted to call it Disco High. And Alan said, no, I'm not making a movie called Disco High. And besides, the disco is dead. And then I think it was Clash or Cheap Trick.
I thought it was in that order. Yeah. First the Clash, then the Clash would have been great.
Right. But none of that worked out. So the Ramones were, and then the Tubes, remember them?
Yes, Fee Waybill.
Yeah.
Fee Waybill, yes.
The Ramones were not that well known then.
Uh-huh.
And I think there was some question as to, is this punk band going to be big enough to be able to, carry the movie? And ironically, today, the reason the movie is remembered
is because the Ramones.
It's because the Ramones. Yeah. If it was the exact same movie, and I'm not knocking the movie, but if it's a lovely movie, but if it was a different band, it wouldn't be the same, because the Ramones had this incredible, sweetly subversive, dangerous.
They're the perfect band for the movie. They really are the perfect, because it's
and cartoony.
It's cartoony. It's also nostalgic without being cloying. It's they're originalists.
And the music is good, and it's punchy, and it's
about high school emotions. Right. The Clash does not sing about high school emotions.
Right.
The Ramones do. To that end, they're the perfect band.
And they're also they're your parents' version of what you don't want your kids to be like, which makes them so attractive.
Yeah,
and the idea that the characters in the movie are so besotted with the Ramones, and that the Ramones are treated like they're the Beatles in this movie. I mean, they're hot. Everybody loves them. Everybody wants to sleep with them. And it's the Ramones. I mean, and plus,
none of them were big gets in terms of sleeping.
And Johnny, was a huge horror movie fan.
So he must have been. Like, he knew what he was doing.
Johnny was he was sort of the Paul of the group.
Yes,
or maybe he was the John of the group. I can't remember. But they can't even be segmented like that because they're so unlike.
Yeah, well, I know two of them despised each other. I think Joey and Johnny despised each other.
Well, Joey didn't say much.
Yeah,
but Joey's acting is just brilliant. I mean, he's perfect.
Yeah,
he
really has a Ringo-like quality.
But I mean, even sub Ringo.
The Church of the Sub Ringo. We've done it. I knew if we banged our head on this long enough.
He just says stuff like, "Pizza, I want some," and
yeah.
And also the movie is, it's nakedly anachronistic. I mean, not anachronistic, anarchic.
Yeah.
Anachronistic too, probably.
Right.
Because it's, they blow up the school at the end. And it's as I said, everything that your parents warned you about, and at the end, Don Steele says, "Oh, we can come to your school and blow that up
too." Now, was that a New World movie, or was that? Yeah, that was a New World movie.
Yeah.
Does Roger still go to the movies? Does
he go? He sees movies, certainly, because every time I've talked to him, he's seen whatever's current, whatever's going on. I mean, he's still working. He's still making movies. I mean, the distribution system is kaput, but he's still out there, still doing stuff.
Yeah,
and he's still giving breaks to people. He's still giving. There's the list of people who have come onto the roster of Corman graduates it's still growing. I mean, there's probably a new one now.
Certainly from the Easy Riders, Raging Bulls era. It's all came.
But during the 80s, all the cassette movies and, all that stuff, and now the streaming movies and his remake of Death Race 2000 again, that he just made in New Zealand. It's phenomenal. I mean, the guy's amazing.
Fantastic Four.
Well, yeah, which finally actually I think has seen the light of day. I think,
but it's also not the worst version of Fantastic Four.
No, that's the thing. It's the sad thing about it. That's what he said.
I'm in good company. Well, I really can't thank you enough for taking the time. I know you're super busy and you're quite a gentleman to indulge me. Thanks really very much for being on the show.
Have me back.
I will. Can you do it now? Two movies I saw on airplanes this year. One, Shin Godzilla. Amazing.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right.
So, all due respect to Bryan Cranston, who I adore as a human being. One of the best Godzilla movies in years.
Well, the American one was not so good, so it was.
He was great in it.
He was great. He was advertised like he was the lead, though. And then he was like in it 10 minutes, and
he's
you're
in
like,
it the way Harrison Ford is in Blade Runner, or the way Charlton Heston is in Beneath the Planet of the Apes.
Right.
But they use Godzilla as a symbolism for the way the Japanese government responded to the Fukushima meltdown.
Right.
So you have this great satire of bureaucracy, and then a Godzilla attack, and then a satire of how the bureaucracy handles it, then another Godzilla attack, and a satire of the self-serving
nature of politicians and bureaucracy. So it's really two movies at once.
Right.
There's a lot of Dr. Strangelove in it, really. And it's really beautiful to see
Oh, that's great.
a Godzilla movie used to tell a different kind of story.
That's great.
Using
Okay.
him as a vehicle, I thought was great. I saw a movie on the flight to New York this last weekend. I broke down and cried in it 3 times.
Wow.
Sitting on a plane, and I don't cry. Called Will You Be There? Not a horror movie, but South Korean film.
Okay.
There's a guy, he's a doctor, he's in Vietnam doing cleft lip repair. And they're bugging out. You know, it's like, okay, we're done. Doctors Without Borders, we're leaving. He gets on the helicopter, and this old guy comes up with a little baby with a cleft lip. Now, first breakdown, because my youngest had a cleft lip.
Okay.
So it's like, he's holding my daughter. I
Aw.
burst into tears.
Right.
He stays behind. He does the surgery. And as a thank you, this old guy gives him this bottle of pills. And he goes home and he takes the pills, takes one, and wakes up 30 years earlier, sees himself and tells him, you know, that he can't marry the woman that he's in love with. Wow. Because she's going to die because of him.
Wow.
And then he goes back and there's a period of, he doesn't believe him. He has to convince him, blah, blah, blah. Finally, they convince each other. He convinces him he's true. And he goes, oh, fine. I won't have her come to meet me at that place. And he won't. He goes, well, no, you can't be together.
Wow.
Because if you're together, my daughter won't be born.
Right.
So what you have to do is break up with her before she does this. And the young guy's like, fuck you.
Right.
And then he goes back to the future and there's no sign of his daughter because the guy was weak. So he has to go back and is basically fighting with himself. And,
yeah. What's a little Back to the Future, a little Frank Capra, a little
yeah,
bit,
but it's really brilliantly constructed.
No, it sounds great.
And totally heart-wrenching. And it has a very satisfying resolution.
Right.
And I had a similar idea, not as good.
And I'm sorry, what was it called again?
It's called Will You Be There?
Will You Be There? Okay.
Yeah,
all right. I'll look for
I had a similar idea, not as good. So it was like, this is so much better.
Well, South Koreans are on fire, man. They have some tremendous stuff. I saw The Devil, another film a few years back, but I love that film. And there was another, his most recent film is kind of like a Korean kind of untouchables spy thriller called Age of Shadows.
Have you ever seen Infection?
No, actually, no, I haven't. It's like the green goop kind of one. I've actually never seen it. I'm familiar with the film, but
Infection is one of my favorite horror movies. A bottle story.
Right.
All takes place in a hospital. Great twist at the end.
Right. No, some really good stuff. And there's another one another South Korean movie that I'm forgetting what it's called, but it's
called Fuck North Korea.
Yeah, exactly right. But it's there's a disaster at a nuclear power plant. And it did something very interesting with character-wise. It sets up this goofy loser that you like a comedy, and then it becomes a drama about saving the town and saving your family.
Right.
And this guy has to rise above and become serious and become a hero. And as another one that I ended up crying, I would help if I knew the name of the title. I know it's on Netflix. Tremendous film, and I'm just constantly blown away by the stuff happening. And as American films are becoming more and more bland, with a few exceptions. You have things like Aronofsky's Mother, or I hear Blade Runner is great.
Right. Have you seen Mother?
I did, yes.
What is that about?
It's about the Bible.
I'm listening.
Did you see it?
No.
Oh, you haven't seen it?
No.
I don't want to spoil it.
I won't get to see it until it's too late.
Well, other people may.
Yeah, before we go, my two, yours are The Exorcist or Evil Dead 2.
Those are actually two of my favorite movies.
That's what I'm saying. Two of your favorite movies, two of your favorite horror movies.
Yeah.
Mine, American Werewolf.
Yeah.
Or The Thing.
Oh,
the Carpenter, The
so
Thing.
Good.
Is one of them both of the perfect horror movie? Of the four,
which is the perfect? I'm a little biased, but again, those are still 4 great films. That's the fascinating thing.
Not a bad frame in any of them.
The fascinating thing about genre films is that there's a lot of shitty genre films.
Sure.
Probably more than any other genre. But when they're good,
oh boy,
yeah, and that's what we kiss a lot of frogs to get to that one. But when you get an American Werewolf or a Thing or or
whatever,
an Exorcist or whatever. Wow, so worth the wait and so effective, and it's great, So
these are if you haven't seen them or see them again, Halloween's coming up. The Thing, Evil Dead 2, The Exorcist, American Werewolf in London, Train to Busan,
A Dark Song, Infection.
All right,
nice.
All right, and if you find Will You Be There, have some tissues, or I'm just a sissy.
I will be looking for it. And Tales of Halloween now.
Tales of Halloween
now
on Netflix.
Yeah.
With a soft-skinned, doe-eyed ingenue named Dana Gould.
What did you think of War for the Planet of the Apes?
I enjoyed it very much. I like those films. There's something, I'm with you. We talked about this on the other show. I feel like there should be were you a Marvel Comics guy?
Yeah.
There should be a little thing at the bottom with an asterisk going, see Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly. Excelsior.
We discussed this on the Trailers from Hell podcast, which will probably drop long after this.
Those movies have no right to be as good as they are.
Yeah,
but I did like Dawn better.
But I miss, there's still there's something about that. And you talked about that shot. It's like, to me, it's always, someone like, who's the guy? Was it James Gregory dressed as a gorilla sitting on a horse?
Yeah.
It's the most terrifying thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And the new one,
Barney.
we
only good humans are dead.
We're never going to finish a story here. I remember watching $1 Million Duck. And it's Joe Flynn.
Wait, let me just say
James
that
Gregory.
in this movie we get porn, we get history of violence, and $1 Million Duck.
Yep. And men having sex with their mothers.
Right.
Have you seen $1 Million Duck as an adult?
Not lately.
Phenomenal film.
But I was at the premiere party for DuckTales.
Yeah, not the same. Not the same. James Gregory, Joe Flynn, bunch of those guys doing scenes together.
Known as beloved by one and all as Captain Binghamton.
Yes. No, I was obsessed with Joe Flynn for a long time. I always wanted to do his biopic. Scott Larry should do his biopic.
Yeah. There was a period in time when Elvis Costello looked exactly like Joe Flynn in Big Hell's Navy.
Yes, and then he lost weight. I don't know where the hell are we? $1 Million Duck.
$1 Million Duck.
Naturally, there's
what else could we be talking about? $1 Million Duck.
My favorite James Gregory moment of all time, because I love him. I love him so much. He works for the Treasury Department or something in that film, because of course it's gold eggs and that's and the phone rings. He picks up and he goes, Bleh. We're like, what? We go back. What did he say? Bleh. And then we turn on the subtitles and it says, hello, U.S. Department of Treasury. And him doing scenes with Flynn.
There's 2 Barney Miller cast members in Beneath the Planet of the Apes.
It's Gregory?
Yeah, Gregory Sierra.
Gregory Sierra, yeah. Hey, how about that?
Nice pull.
How about that?
Yeah, my brother used to walk around going, the only good human's a dead human, Barney.
First captain on Miami Vice.
Was he really?
So Don John, yeah.
And he was a Manchurian Candidate.
That's right. So
he's been around forever.
So, my God, if I can pull out what we were talking about a minute ago, I will be impressed.
No, well, we were talking about obscure horror movies, and you went to a Siberian movie, a Siberian film. You're talking about?
Oh no, a Serbian film.
Serbian film.
Yeah, not recommended. God, I don't know. Those little ones. There is. I got to remember the name. It's a wonderful. These 2 slacker kids wandering around a zombie apocalypse, and there's a scene. I'm not doing the film justice because this sounds trashier than it is. It's pretty trashy, but it's very funny. There's a guy in the back of a station wagon, and there's a very hot, naked zombie girl is trying to get to him, and she's sort of just on the car going like this. And he's out in the middle of the zombie apocalypse, and here's this one smashing her boobs against the car window, so he starts jerking off.
That's clever.
It's pretty clever.
I'm going to be honest with you, I'm a little zombie apocalypse out.
Yeah, no, I was too, but this one kind of worked.
What, in your opinion, was the great big studio horror film?
Wow, that
could be. I would include It Follows under that category.
I really loved It Follows. I felt like,
I don't think that's the last great one.
And it was a tiny little indie too. But the fact that they could make, I'm not kidding, a fat, naked, middle-aged man standing on a roof, frightening.
Not only that, do you know Alex Sulkin?
I know of.
Brilliant comedy writer. We went to see that together, and when that shot came and he did that, Alex just went, "Honey, I got the part."
That is a famous, my friend Dan Waters, I mentioned earlier, anytime, I think the best one ever was during one of Al Swearengen's soliloquies whilst receiving blowjob from an overweight prostitute on Deadwood, if you recall. And Dan goes, "Mom, I'm on TV." Gotta get your start somewhere, folks.
Yeah, that's right. We all do it.
I mean, 28 Days Later was sort of the last one that really
let me in.
The remake.
Well, I would say that would be the American studio version.
Yeah.
I know on the canon they had a pretty good dissection of why one's better than the other, but I put them as pretty equal.
Yeah, no, I like them both. And the last one I came out of with my heart racing was 28 Days Later.
Yeah.
And that's, Danny Boyle can do anything.
Yeah. And 28 Days Later also did a major revamp in Zombie Lore. They weren't fast until
right. No, that's what they ran, and it's also like Alien and Aliens. It's a movie in which it's a completely different genre from the original.
The original, you mean 28 weeks later?
No, 28 days.
Wait a minute.
Sandra Bullock in she's in rehab.
Yeah, no, you bet. You got me on that. I've totally.
No one ever seemed to notice that. I was like, am I alone in this world? There's a movie called 28 Days, and then there's a movie called 28 Days Later. It's
I'll tell you what's a great. I think it qualifies as a horror film.
Okay,
and it doesn't get its just desserts because it's ostensibly a kids' film. Coraline.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Coraline's great.
Yeah. Wait, hang on. The eyes, right? Yeah. Yes.
Great.
Okay. Yeah. Neil Gaiman. Yeah.
Yeah. Neil Gaiman.
Yes.
You know, because they had a great script and it was well designed, and they went again. I go back to Twin Peaks. Yeah, a great script, tell the great story.
No, I love that. Neil is a small group of us. We are brothers from the same father, essentially. He's a son of Harlan as well.
Oh, really? Yeah, no, we only have a couple minutes left, but let's go into that for a little bit. You're one of the few people to write with Harlan Ellison.
Harlan claims the only. I never know if that's entirely true, but
give us a quick sketch of, for those of you who only know Harlan Ellison as a name.
Harlan is one of the great science fiction writers. He'd recoil at that nomenclature, but
I'm pretty sure he doesn't listen.
Everything, he may listen to this, and then you'll have a fan for life.
Or an enemy.
He wrote, he's incredibly prolific, wrote hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, actually I think 1,600 short stories. He was from that wave of those guys who would sit around and like, I need to make $100 this week. And then they would invent some science fiction tradition that is everywhere, write the thing that becomes the Matrix 50 years later.
Yeah, exactly.
He also wrote what is always, every time they list and rank the best Star Trek episodes.
He wrote the greatest episode of Star Trek, City on the Edge of Forever.
Yes, where Kirk falls in love with Joan Collins.
Yes.
Convincingly.
Edith Keeler must die.
And here, this is Harlan in a nutshell. He writes the greatest episode of Star Trek ever, disowns the episode, and badmouths the show.
Yeah.
That is how you do it. But he was the writer who made me want to be a writer when I was a kid. And I sought him out in the waning days of my Oscar glory, or sort of, I kept losing to Larry McMurtry, which is a fine thing to do.
Yeah.
And I was like, what can I do to capitalize on this? And I realized I had yet to meet Harlan, and I called a friend who I knew him, asked if he liked the movie. Could I buy him lunch? Harlan invited me to the house, and we just became the best of friends.
Oh, that's terrific.
24 hours later, he called me up and asked if I wanted to write with him. And we ended up adapting one of his stories for a TV show called Masters of Science Fiction.
Right.
Got to work with Brian Dennehy and John Hurt.
I worked with Brian Dennehy. Brian played my dad on a pilot.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
He's
the real deal.
Yeah.
I didn't have to act.
He's got, there's just this presence.
Yeah, no, I did not have to act.
It's, there's a lot, you know how so many of those guys you meet, they seem smaller when you meet
Brian's
them, but
bigger.
he's just,
Brian's bigger. And quite literally, I went into his dressing room and he's literally just sitting there by himself reading a biography of Stalin that looks like the New York phone book.
Yeah.
He's just sitting there. Like,
he's at the page 800.
Yeah, I was like, do you want a potato and a glass of water? Is it too many amenities in here for you? I could take the lampshade off and you could just have the bulb. Yeah, I love Brian.
Yeah, he was lovely. But anyway, so got it. But writing with Harlan was, to go back to Deadwood again, his wife will tell you, it was like she would walk into the kitchen and she said it was like an episode of Deadwood because we would just be hurling invective at each other and throwing things. And he would routinely, if we got into an argument about it, and it was his story.
Yeah.
But
you have to kind of,
you have to push back.
You have to push back. Yeah,
absolutely.
I was in that situation earlier this year.
And
it was like, I'm not here to be a fan. I'm here to do a job.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to.
For sure.
I don't think that's good.
Well, also just in general with Harlan, you have to push back. If he starts insulting you, you have to throw it back, and then you're fine.
Yeah,
but
or he'll kill you. Yeah,
yeah. And it was like, he go, I go, what kind of idea is that? Who do you think you are? And he go, look at all these awards I have. And I go, I don't see any Oscars. And he go, you're not an Academy Award winner. You're an Academy Award loser. and then we figure it out. But yeah, it was a joy.
And he knew everybody.
He knew fucking everyone. He has stories about hanging out with
L. Ron Hubbard.
Well, L. Ron Hubbard, yeah. Lee Van Cleef. He and Lee Van Cleef used to sit outside some newsstand in Burbank and smoke cigars together. He has stories about that.
That's amazing.
It's insane. And every time you think he's bullshitting, a phone will ring, or he'll show you the picture of him and Burt Lancaster or him and Steve McQueen racing motorcycles together, or just insane stuff. I know he was dear friends with your friend Robin Williams.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
They were, in fact, there's a great documentary about Harlan called Dreams with Sharp Teeth, and Robin's in it. The two of them, you can just see why that relationship worked, because the similar speed.
But it's also, but Robin is all light.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. I have a great, I don't know, maybe it's a great, I have a great Robin Williams story.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I just, years ago, whenever it was, you know the date, it was right before Jay Leno was about to start guest hosting the Tonight Show.
It was about 91 or 90.
Yeah. And I was with some friends. We were working around the corner. We were at the Improv for dinner, and they handed out a card with all the comics who were going to be there. And we were like, nah, we're eating dinner. You were Dana Gould. Fuck this guy.
I was probably on that list.
And about
1990.
45 minutes later, they came back and all the names had been crossed off, and it was Jay Leno and Robin Williams, $5. And if you're already having dinner here.
Yeah.
Now, I'm the guy, and again, in that period, and I don't, because Robin, obviously, I remember seeing him on Happy Days going, what the fuck?
Yeah, I remember when he was on Happy Days.
But there was a period there where his stand-up, I just felt you were just kind of like, it was kind of a lull.
Yeah.
And Jay Leno, which you know, and obviously, but people forget, was amazing.
He was amazing.
Yeah. And it was that period. So my friends were all like, oh, Robin Williams. I'm like, oh, Jay Leno.
Right.
And I remember Jay came out and he had index cards. He was first and he bombed. I was really bummed. And then Robin Williams came out and he started doing this bit about talking to people, about getting people to shout out their worst fears. And, you know, I mean, you must know the top 10 answers. So you've got material, but it looks like you're improving. And then this one drunk started shouting out, you know, he'd go, you, sir. And the guy over here would shout. And he'd like, not you. And finally he turns to this guy. He goes, yes, what? What's your greatest fear? And the guy goes, wet pussy. And it was like this switch went on and Robin had to work. He didn't have, he had not sat at home and prepared material for wet pussy. I've never seen anything so funny.
Oh no,
I mean,
he was
holy. I mean, and I was a fan of it, but just
no. Robin could bring stuff down from other planets.
Yeah.
I remember when I was working at Cobb's Comedy Club in San Francisco, California. I was performing and just doing an hour show, wrapping up as headlining, and the waitress brings me up a glass of water, which I didn't ask for. This is bizarre. And there's a note under the water that says, Rick and Robin are here, which means Rick Overton and Robin Williams are here. So
that's intimidating.
So, well, I know them, but they're both, they're both my friends.
I thought this was, okay.
Yeah, sorry. They're both my friends. So I go, we have and I know in my head, Rick will come on first and then Robin will close. And so I go, thank you, I'm done, but since you're here, we still have time. A brilliant comedian is by Rick Overton, and Rick comes up with Robin. And then I go to get off and Robin grabs my arm and goes, no, we're going to improv.
Jesus.
And I'm on stage doing improv with Robin Williams. And I'm just looking at Robin Williams. I had such a good set. And I could have got off in victory. And now I'm going to no, you're going to spar. Who am I sparring with? Muhammad Ali. Oh, great.
But you were up to it. Go on. You were up to it.
No. Robin protected me. I actually think Jim Carrey might have been there that night too. It was a really weird night.
Wow.
It was a really weird night. I remember I was playing freeze tag, if you know that improv game, where you're doing something and then somebody goes, freeze.
Yeah. I've seen that.
And in San Francisco at that club with Jim Carrey, somebody said, freeze. And it was Jim and he tagged in and then he just went, I have nothing. Which was really fun.
Which isn't that his whole philosophy now?
Yeah.
Have you been following him?
Well, now he's becoming Andy Kaufman.
Yeah, exactly. I love when actors do that. When they start becoming like Charlie Hunnam on Sons of Anarchy. You know that part was getting to him. You'd see him around town on his motorcycle.
Or outfit. You know who is my favorite example of that is Sterling Hayden towards the end.
He became the guy from Long Goodbye.
Yeah, he did. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yes.
Yeah. You know the Sterling Hayden Jaws story?
No.
So you're wearing a Jaws t-shirt. So
he was.
Well, Spielberg wanted to play Quint.
Oh, of course.
And he went, I think I'd rather just go fishing. and then he did. And he took his boat out for a year.
Yeah. Yes. That's fantastic.
And they got it to Robert Shaw because they had worked with Zanuck Brown on The Sting.
Right.
It's who you know.
Exactly. I had, anyway, I have a long story. But no, there was a film critic. I can't remember. I will, but I won't say her name because she's a fine critic, but I've always held this against her years
Pauline
ago.
Kael.
Yeah. But she wrote a review of something else, and the statement, she said, she was talking about somebody's terrible over-the-top performance. She said, not since Robert Shaw in Jaws as an actor chewed the scenery.
Oh, for God's sake.
But it wasn't that she didn't like Robert Shaw in Jaws. It's that she took it for granted that you shared her perception.
Yeah, of course.
Of this is a terrible performance. It was like, are you out of your mind?
Well, that's the greatest thing when you go back and now this is a great way to close. It has nothing to do with anything we've said up until this point.
Porn.
I've kept you here for an hour and a half. If you ever get upset about a negative review, there are many examples, but my favorite is the reviews of the Beatles premiere on the Ed Sullivan.
Oh,
it's just clearly they do not know how to play music. There's like, it was literally the reviews are in the New York. I think Bosley Crowther reviewed the New York Times, and it was as if he was reviewing an animal sacrifice. Like, this offense against nature foisted upon the American. Yeah, and there's all those movies that are now incredible classics like The Empire Strikes Back, not a patch on the original. And
well, to tie it back to what you were saying earlier about the kids and how we're old farts. I just only yesterday learned about the Cash Me Outside girl, which just Google her.
Oh yeah, no, I know what that is. Yeah, I know what that is. Yeah,
and I'm watching this.
How about that?
Yeah,
and I'm going. How about that?
I'm going. Well, this is probably the worst thing I've seen. But what if I'm Bosley Crowther and she's the Beatles?
Yeah, and I think that happens. Yeah, every time I roll my eyes at overly woke millennials, I just hear Jack Webb going, think you're pretty far out, don't you, son?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, no, it's my job now is to get out of the way.
Well, no, your job is to make Blue Boy.
I'm a tree. I'm a tree.
I'm a tree.
Charles, thank you very much for coming by, man.
Thank you for having me. This is a pleasure.
Happy Halloween, everybody.
This has been the Dana Gould Hour, brought to you by the Internet. Music by Andy Paley with Jake Posner behind the board. Produced by Jeff Fox. Graphic design and web production by Spencer Hunt and Segan Friend. Sound editing and post-production by Jalinda Palmer and Joe Napolitano. Hey, if you enjoyed the show, why don't you drop us a line at show@danagould.com.
This is Orson Welles, ladies and gentlemen. Out of character, to assure you that the War of the Worlds has no further significance than as the holiday offering it was intended to be. The Mercury Theater's own radio version of dressing up in a sheet and jumping out of a bush and saying boo. Starting now, we couldn't soap all your windows and steal all your garden gates. By tomorrow night, so we did the best next thing. We annihilated the world before your very ears and utterly destroyed the CBS. You will be relieved, I hope, to learn that we didn't mean it, and that both institutions are still open for business. So goodbye, everybody, and remember, please, for the next day or so, the terrible lesson you learned tonight. That grinning, glowing, globular invader of your living room is an inhabitant of the pumpkin patch, and if your doorbell rings and nobody's there, that was no Martian, it's Halloween.